Right, on to this week's Street Talk then. And like we said earlier, we're going to be talking about the littler storylines first before ending up with the Paul story. So it's the second time this month we've even done this, isn't it? Because we had it with the Lauren, where they had the whole episode dedicated to her. Is this becoming a new thing on Coronation Street to have storyline specific?
I was going to mention this. I don't like this trend. I think that there's something really special about focusing an episode on one particular story or having a two-hander. And now this is going to be the third one in, 7 months?
I don't mind too much. It does seem odd that they've put them both together, although it does naturally fit into the story that they would have in here. I don't think that it's we're going to start seeing them pop up all the time anymore.
Well, I disagree, because we've had two in the space of a few weeks, and then we also had the one on Boxing Day, which was
with Carla and Peter.
I think there was something really, really special about a two-hander, and to be fair, none of these have actually been two-handers, and we don't know what Fridays is like yet. We haven't watched it yet, but
I don't think it is going to be. I don't think Fridays is a two-hander, but honestly, I don't know. Like I said, we haven't watched it yet. We've only watched Mondays and Wednesdays episodes, so we're going to be chatting about the other storylines of that first. Then we're going to, tomorrow, watch Friday's episode and record the rest of the Street Talk then, but it'll all be together to you and it'll be totally seamless, apart from the seams that you are now listening to as I explain the podcast production process. We have got 5 storylines that we're going to be chatting about this week, starting off with the Leanne Institute storyline. It was kind of bit of Leanne, little bit of Toyah as well, so we're going to be talking about that.
And the Mighty Mighty Chariot Square Hotel, which is just looking more gorgeous as the days go past. And I really do wonder, now we've been to the Midland Hotel, whether they've based it a little bit on that, because there is an olive tree growing in the bar.
Oh yes, that is quite Midlandy, isn't it?
And there is a great big tree for no reason in the. Is it the Deku tree? Don't know.
We're going to be chatting about the tree. Bolton Wanderer Returns storyline after that, which is a storyline title I'm just going to keep on going for a little bit. Next up, The Mason and the Carpenter. Just my Stu and Mason storyline title.
Yeah, good.
That's not bad, is it? That's not too bad this week.
Bad.
I enjoyed that. Next up is a storyline title that we have 100% used at least once before, maybe more, but we use it every time that Abby comes back onto the street after a little spell away. It's called I'll Be Back.
Oh, I'll Be Back.
Yeah, a bit like I'll Be Back, isn't it? Never goes old. And then finally, we will get onto the Paul storyline. I think, we're approaching the end for poor Mr. Foreman now, so it maybe is the right time to transition to the storyline title. They think it's Paul over. And as of recording... Lots of people haven't seen it. Lots of people out there on the line are saying, could Fridays be Paul's final episode? I don't think it is. I will be proven right or wrong in the next 24 hours. By the time you're listening to this
episode, you'll know.
Yeah, but is it they think it's Paul over? It is now, or they think it's Paul over? Not yet. Time will tell. So let's get started with the Leanne Institute story.
And again, I think I'm going to leave this one to
Gemma
you.
is going to leave this one to me.
Michael's the expert.
No, this isn't a story that either of us are particularly comfortable about talking about, but about it. One of us must, and I shall bear the burden.
Before I go, I just wanted to talk about the gout menu.
Well, no, that comes in the Abby storyline. It's fine.
Oh, okay, then I can save my thoughts, and I'll let
Can
you...
we just? I want to talk about my favourite line of the week so far, which is after Nick punches Rowan's lights out, and Debbie's like, "What did she say? Don't bleed over me upholstery. It's just been done."
Oh.
I mean, I don't know what I'm going to think about Friday's episode so far, but if it wasn't for Paul and Billy and quite possibly one of them taking character of the week, Debbie was definitely up there as a close third.
You know how I'm always trying to pitch a new double act whimsical murder mystery.
Not gritty, whimsical.
Yeah.
The other one.
Well, like a tea time detective show for ITV with a new double act.
Mm.
I would definitely pitch now Debbie Webster and the kid who plays young Alan Carr in Changing Ends as a crime fighting,
my gosh,
the campest crime fighting duo of all time.
We have binged the whole of Changing Ends season 2 over the past week, so we're not going to be going on about it.
We won't talk about it probably next week. But oh god, it was brilliant.
If you haven't seen Changing Ends on ITVX, watch it now. It's great.
And the two mums that snipe at each other and call it, cowbags to each other. I want whoever wrote those lines for them to come, Alan Carr obviously, and come and write for some Corrie women, because I just would love frenemies in Coronation Street. I don't think we have any at the moment, do we?
I don't
Not
know,
really.
not in the same way.
Tracy used to be that. Beth used to be that.
People
But
are just
we
nasty
don't-
now.
Yeah, people just don't have the elegance of being.
Right,
snarky.
are you gonna let me run down what's been going on with our Toyah and Ariane? Okay. Well, unsurprisingly, Toyah has got cancer. This is something that was was it 2 weeks ago that she found out that when she was admitted to hospital with her stomach cramps. And on the podcast, I was saying, oh yeah, it probably is going to be cancer, just because that's where they like to go with things. That always goes to the worst possible outcome in Coronation Street in terms of, you know, giving the character as much misery as possible. And you know, we are not happy that the storyline has gone this way. It's, as I just said earlier, cancer storylines we don't find comfortable watching necessarily. Everybody's got something that I think I don't enjoy watching that. And with the fact that it's lovely Toyah, who's one of our favourites, that's going through it, it does not make for pleasant watching. And I still stick by the fact that I think probably this particular development could have been avoided. There's so much has been thrown at this cult storyline, and I am starting to see more and more people not too happy with the cult storyline online, saying it's gone on for too long, it's just getting ridiculous. But for me, it was still great when it was just cult, and having Toyah taken it down, you know, maybe from the inside, that to me would have been plenty to keep me a satisfied Corrie watcher. But all this extra stuff about the affair and now the cancer, which is just kind of detracted from where it was originally going. I don't enjoy it. I don't like it. And my only hope for all of this is that we can get back to it being about the cult and maybe even the affair, just the cult and affair before long. I've been, and that's not to say that Corrie are doing a bad job with the cancer side of it. As always with these medical storylines, I think on the whole they do a really good job. They get their researchers to make sure that it's all accurate. They do work with charities. This particular time they've been working alongside Ovarian Cancer Action Charity, who I've been in correspondence with a little bit over this week, and by all accounts, they're making sure that this is, you know, medically accurate and correct. And with all these kind of stories, yes, it's important to raise awareness of them. But it doesn't make for fun watching, especially when it's a character that you really like. I honestly don't think that this is going to be the end for Toyah. Before I even get on to the synopsising, I suppose I'll bit of a PSA from myself actually, about ovarian cancer, because I've been doing a bit of reading up about this over the past week or so. It seems that when Toyah gets her diagnosis this week, she's told that it looks like it's being contained to just one ovary, which puts it as a stage 1 ovarian cancer. Which, you know, there's a, you know, with the operation which Toyah's going to be getting 2 weeks time, I think they said, possible chemo that all matches to everything on their website. Very high survival rate with that. I think it's, where did I find it, about 95% of people who are diagnosed with stage 1 ovarian cancer survive for over 5 years of their after their diagnosis. So if that's what it is with Toyah, this is just, you know, hopefully something that she can get through, and she'll be kind of fighting fit again before long. I don't know for sure, but that's just what I'm hoping it is. So Toyah's told this week that she's got germ cell ovarian cancer, which is cancer that starts in the eggs in the ovaries, the germ cells, and this makes up to about 5% of all ovarian cancer cases. So it's a very small amount of people, of women who have ovarian cancer, have this particular type of it. Interestingly, it does only mostly affect younger women. So from what I've been reading, it's women up to their early 30s that will be more likely to get germ cell ovarian cancer. So Toyah's obviously above that age bracket, but it doesn't mean that it's unrealistic that she's got it. From looking at what the Ovarian Cancer Action website is saying, and from what they've said in emails with me, is that they were really keen that Coronation Street got it right, but they were understandably a little bit wary maybe when they heard that Coronation Street were doing this at first, because they didn't want to they wanted to make sure it was completely medically accurate, and the idea that this was first came about for Toyah, it was first falsely diagnosed as being pregnancy at the beginning. That definitely can happen, but that is something that's very, very rare. There's a case study on the website about somebody who was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer, and she was also told by doctors first that she was pregnant, and then it turned out that she wasn't, and she did go on to make a full recovery. So I suppose soaps will sometimes go for the rare cases, particularly if it fits with where they want the story beats to go. So yeah, what's happened to Toyah absolutely can and has happened to other people, although the website does also make it clear that don't test that you've got ovarian cancer with a pregnancy test. That's hopefully that goes without saying that's not a good idea, and it's all these false positives can happen because of something called human chorionic gonadotropin, which is produced when you have ovarian cancer, or maybe it's just germ cell, I can't remember, and that can be detected by more sensitive pregnancy tests like Toyah's had in the hospital. I think it seems to be very, very rare that women are misdiagnosed with ovarian cancer and told that actually you're pregnant. More common symptoms of ovarian cancer include persistent stomach pain, feeling full, needing to wee more often, persistent bloating, and it's that the charity are saying if you're noticing these symptoms and they're out of the ordinary, that's when you need to get yourself checked out by the GP. I also read that there's no reliable, effective screening method for ovarian cancer as well, so it's more difficult to track early. So I as always with these types of stories, I hope that it raises awareness, gets more funding. I did read that I think this must have just been put on their website over the past few days, because it wasn't there when I looked earlier on in the week, that on after Monday's episode of Coronation Street, when Toyah got the diagnosis, there was a significant spike in Google searches for ovarian cancer. So yeah, I hope this story does do some good, and hopefully get some people diagnosed earlier than they would be and helped out. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna enjoy watching it, that side of it at least. But I have absolutely no doubt that Georgia Taylor and all the other actors involved in it, they're gonna do and have been doing a brilliant job. But maybe it's just me being selfish and thinking I hope that the story doesn't last too long. I hope that she goes in for this surgery in a couple of weeks' time. It's over with that. I don't even need to see her getting the chemo that's being mooted as a possibility at the moment. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. And I know that if you're cured from cancer, if you get the all clear, it doesn't mean that that's it. It's gone again. It might come back again. But I just want Corrie to move on. But this is just me being selfish about this. Let's get back to the cult stuff. That's a lot more fun. Speaking of which, this is where we were left last week with the revelation that Rowan is not in fact Rowan. He's in fact, Luke Salter, I think. And I'm glad that Leanne did call Rowan out on this on Monday, and that's kind of how we start off. I think the first scene is all about Toyah being worried about her appointment, and Leanne saying, "Oh, I've been reality coding that you're okay." But yeah, Rowan is confronted by Leanne in the bistro later on in the episode, and she says, She literally, I think she holds in the phone screen and says, what's this? Why does this say that you're Luke Salter and you've been in jail for 5 years? I loved his reaction to it, just saying, oh yeah, that's me, that's my old life. When you get to my level, you'll understand. I want to know what level Rowan is. What level do you get to change your name? They actually went down the route, like we were talking about last week, of does Leanne get a new name? Is everybody in the Institute named after a tree? I can't wait to see this. He's like, oh, you know, you don't want to stick with Leanne, do you? That name carries so much trauma. And Leanne is taken a bit aback by this and saying, well, hang on a minute, that's my identity, that's who I am. But he's trying to tell her that the possibility of renewal is so exciting. I wonder whether at some point in the future she will up level to a certain level where she gets the option to change her name, and it's at that point that she pulls out and's like, no, this is too much. So I don't know. Toyah and Nick asked Leanne about this a bit later, and she's like, she's convinced very, very quickly. It doesn't take much for her to go, oh, that makes total sense, Rowan. She's already under his spell, and she didn't want to believe that he could be, you know, someone else, or that he's been lying to her all this time, and his story that he's probably just been waiting to hear. I think he even says as part of it, I can't believe it's taken you this long to find out about me. This was the old me. So that this is just what she wanted to hear. Yeah, Rowan is still wonderful. That was the old him. The Institute helped him to move on from that life. He's left this Salter bloke behind, and now he's renewed. And so Leanne tells Nick and Toyah this, and they just can't believe that she's falling for this still. Now, a lot around the same time as well, we've got the talk of Toyah's appointment, where she's getting the results of her tests, and Nick at this point says, "Look, let me come along with you." I think Toyah is quite, she's quite pleased that Nick's going along with her. She doesn't want Leanne to start going on about her reality coding or anything like that. So she says, yeah, that's all right. You go along with me, Nick. And they get to the hospital. She's there staring at the cancer posters on the wall. She even ignores a phone call from Leanne. And then Nick comes into the appointment with her. And this is where we get the diagnosis. I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't get the usual Coronation Street sound effect buzz, where everything fades out in the background, and then as Toyah has the news delivered to her, and then we get the and then snaps back to normal. We got it later when there was the argument with Nick and Leanne, but for the diagnosis, it was just kind of delivered to it straight. Georgia Taylor, fantastic acting in response to getting the news, and she's just kind of shaking her head and nodding and saying, yep, it's okay. Nick's there holding her hands. She's holding back the tears as she's being told this, and she's told that it's confined to one ovary. She'll get it removed in the next couple of weeks, maybe chemo, and crucially, most patients with this cancer respond to treatment and make a full recovery, and then that's what I'm holding out onto at the moment. And she's got this chemo nurse, cancer nurse Brenda, who's going to be there to help her all the way through it. So they go back home, go back to the street. Nick's promising to be with her all the way. Toyah at this point doesn't even know she wants Leanne to know all about this. She can't cope with all the Institute mumbo jumbo that's going to be spouting out of her. But she tries to put that to one side and says, look, let's go for a massive cream cake. So they go to the cafe later. Another incoming phone call from Leanne gets cancelled by Toyah. Did you notice that in one of the times when Leanne phoned Toyah on Monday's episode, we got a picture of her on the screen, and the next time it was just a blank Leanne? So a bit of continuity mistake there. Never mind. Anyway, so they're there, and they said, look, she says that I can't put this off. I need to tell Leanne. I can't keep yet another secret from her, on top of, me and you bonking Nick. So they go to the flat, and Toyah tells Leanne that she's been to the hospital. She breaks the news of her diagnosis, and Leanne, fair play to her, she get absolute right reaction at first. Just the natural reaction. You told your sister has got cancer. She kind of runs in for a hug and a cry, saying, I'm sorry. She's going to phone them. Then she starts all the Institute stuff. I'm going to phone them up tomorrow, see how they can help. She starts going on about bad energy and bad feelings, and it really does sound a little bit like, you brought this on yourself, or to somebody who's primed for Leanne to make it sound like it's all about bad mojo and bad vibes and negativity and all that. It certainly sounded a lot like that, because this is what Leanne's been fed by Rowan and Willow and the others over the last few months. So Nick goes right off on one and says, how dare you make out that this is Toyah's fault and she's brought it onto herself, and Leanne's trying to explain herself and says, well, no, it's more to do with mental anguish can manifest in physical symptoms. And this is when the argument starts getting really heated, and the camera kind of pans and zooms in on Toyah, and it all gets faded out into the background. Toyah then snaps and says, look, just shut up. I can't deal with this right now. I don't need you. I don't need you involved. We later see Nick and Leanne on the sofa agreeing that they need to stay civil during all of this. Leanne doesn't want the Institute coming between them after all. And there was a really nice kind of make-up scene-ish between Leanne and Nick there, where she says, like, I miss being close to you, but what I've been doing with the Institute has been really helpful. Please just stop trashing my beliefs, respect them. And he says, I'll try. And she says, I love you very, very much, and she kisses him. As a Nick and Leanne shipper, personally, I really enjoyed this scene. How long it's going to last, whether or not we'll get back to that, I don't know. I mean, by the end of Wednesdays, Nick's already telling David that he thinks he's falling in love with Toyah, so it's not looking good for Nick and Leanne. But I really did appreciate this, and I've seen lots of people online, and I totally get it, saying that Nick and Leanne clearly aren't suited to each other. But this particular scene, I thought, showed that they could still have something to save here. Am I warming to Nick and Toyah getting together? Ever so slightly, I'm moving up a little notch on there. It seems that online still everybody is huge Toyah and Nick shipper, and they're saying, oh, Leanne, she's lost her chance, it's her fault, Nick isn't right for her, she's the one that made this happen. But I still feel really sorry for Leanne. She I will say is still a massive victim in this. She has been brainwashed. She's hearing all of this from Rowan. It's feeding into the hopelessness that she's felt, and the grief over first Ollie dying and then Simon moving out. And I totally get the people that say this isn't what Leanne would be like. She'd see through it. She's smarter than that. But I think that they've done a really good job making it seem natural that Leanne is being taken in by this, and it's been a gradual indoctrination into the Institute, if you like. And I as much as when I'm kind of shaking my head when she's saying all of this stuff about the Institute, I'm thinking, well, it's not her fault. I really love the idea of Nick and Leanne together. I think it would be a shame if this story came between this relationship that's been going 25 years on and off. And although I also totally get the people that are saying, well, Nick and Toyah seem more suited, they're a lot more kind of calm and I guess wiser and a bit more chill than old Mardy Chops Leanne. Yep, I totally get all of that. But to me, I'm still feeling that all of these romantic developments between Nick and Toyah, to me, are feeling just very, very plot driven rather than natural. And I can see, in a storyline conference, going, oh, what if Nick and Toyah got together? Think about the drama that would cause. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing from this. They've made it work. They've made it feel natural, and it's not just kind of thrown in there for like, oh, look at the drama, the two sisters fighting over one man, or they're not fighting yet. But I'm sure that will come. Although, will there be anything left to fight for on Leanne's side by the end of it? I don't know. But yeah, I suppose if we do stick with Nick and Toyah together at the end, and I don't know how Nick and Leanne can get back from this if Leanne finds out, and the longer it gets left without Leanne discovering what's been going on, including the fact that they slept together, the harder it's going to be for her to forgive Nick. So maybe if Nick and Toyah do get together eventually, I will just think, oh, well, can't fight it. I've just been so happy with Toyah's last two relationships. I love Toyah and Spider back together, however brief it was a couple of years ago. Toyah and Imran are our favourite couple. I'm not over the moon with Toyah and Nick. I won't go on about it. I've been going on about it enough, but it's not feeling completely natural to me. But I totally get how some people see that they're suited, and Leanne has brought it on herself, but I don't think she has. Anyway, so Leanne's going off on one, and now she's calmed down with Nick, and they have that little kiss, which was a lovely tender moment. But then Toyah comes in with her decision made. She doesn't want either of them involved in her treatment anymore. She doesn't want to talk to them about it either. They just need to concentrate on each other. She knows what could happen if this affair, one night stand, whatever you want to call it, between her and Nick comes out. She's trying to fight this relationship. She knows that this can only cause drama. Having a man come between two sisters that have been so close, this can't go on as much as she might want it to be. So she says, look, you deal with your problems. You clearly got some. I'll deal with mine. I'll concentrate on me, she says. And that's not an uncommon attitude among Corrie characters when they get some horrible diagnosis to try and want to fight it themselves. Even like when the other year when Tim had his heart problems and he didn't want to tell Sally about it, and then had Aggie as his confidant. But by the time we get partway through Wednesday's episode, Toyah is very, very grateful for the support that Nick's been giving her. So she comes down on Wednesday morning, or comes out into the lounge of the flat to see Leanne talking to AI Ollie again, and she's reassuring him. I don't know what I'm talking about. She's telling this computer simulation, she's reassuring herself, I suppose, that everything's going to be okay. And she jumps up when she's realised that she's being watched, and Leanne says, look, honestly, Toyah, it's just me and you after this massive diagnosis. Please let me in. Don't push me away. I'll cancel my upload session today so that I can go to your appointment with you. And Toyah, in the politest possible terms, tells her to bugger off. She's doing this on her own. David gets involved in the story as well. He's been kind of on the periphery, I suppose, especially with Nick's secret about him and Toyah for the last few weeks. And I think he says to her, is Leanne still mental? Yeah, says Nick. Can't say that anymore, though. So he realised, he's making it very clear to David that there is something really not right with Leanne, and therefore their relationship as well. So Toyah comes into the cafe, Nick offers to give her a lift, and she's kind of worn down into saying yes in the end, but it's just a lift. So meanwhile, Rowan's with Leanne in the flat, doing this upload session. And Rowan, there was some really nice camera work there, I thought, when the camera was just panning back and forth between Rowan and Leanne as he was trying to make her see that she should respect Toyah's wishes to deal with it on her own, which makes, it's much better for Rowan if Leanne's not getting emotionally involved with this horror that Toyah's going through. He wants to see the family split up, and and by the end of the upload, he's able to convince her that it was all her own idea and you should be very, very proud of yourself, and a huge weight is lifted off Leanne's back there as she comes to this conclusion that she's better off not getting involved. Really sad. So we see Toyah in the appointment later. She's getting some blood taken. Really lovely nurse there, asking her about a support network. And Toyah says that I live with my sister, my brother-in-law, but apart from that, it's just me. And I think that's what makes her realise that she shouldn't be doing this on her own. Interestingly, Janice did get a shout out. Whenever there's a big event, wedding, horrible diagnosis, funeral, whatever on Coronation Street, we're always wondering, are they going to mention the fact that there's actually lots of other characters that haven't been on the show for a while that probably should be turning up at this juncture, and they don't. Obviously, Violet came back for Dylan's court appearance earlier this year, but cases like that are few and far between. Is Janice going to come back? Unlikely, if you look at what Vicky and Twistle's been saying about Coronation Street on Twitter recently. So I think Leanne asked Toyah, have you spoken to Janice? And Toyah saying, oh, that's the last thing I want is her knowing. I suppose it ties in with the fact that at that juncture, at that point in time, Toyah was determined to do this solo. I'm not expecting Janice to come back or for her name to be even mentioned, but I do appreciate, as somebody who's looking out for these things, that she did at least get mentioned that maybe her mum might want to know that she's got cancer. But anyway, As Toyah comes out of the appointment, Nick's still there, and she's actually really relieved to see him. That was a lot tougher than she thought it was going to be. She goes in for a hug, and this is when they get spotted by some Institute pap who's snapping away there, trying to get the dirt on Nick and Toyah. And it was just a genuine brother-in-law, sister-in-law hug, with a little bit more, because clearly Nick is developing these feelings for Toyah, but the little bit more is all the photographer is interested in, and he takes his pictures scarpers with Nick giving chase. That's two chase scenes we've had in Weatherfield General in the past week. Maybe they need to implement some sort of speed bumps or something, I don't know. Anyway, they get back to the flat. David's there. Nick's absolutely fuming with the fact that somebody's been sent by the Institute, he presumes, to go and photograph them to get more dirt that Rowan can use to blackmail them with. So he hot-foots it over to Chariot Square, where, yet again, the Institute are holding one of their, a meet and greets today, I think? And David's in tow this time. So he gets to the hotel, says, Rowan, you call your people off. And Rowan's like, oh, have you got something to hide then? And this is when Nick thumps him, which is brilliant. And we got that classic line from Debbie, don't bleed on me apostrophe. It's just been done. So love that. Well-deserved punch in the mush from Rowan there. But this is playing right into his hands, isn't it? Rowan loves the fact that Nick has punched him and is making himself look really unstable and jealous, and of course it then falls to Rowan to be magnanimous in the whole situation and not press charges later on against Nick as well, which means that Leanne just gets to have a massive go at Nick herself, even though she hears about the photo. She doesn't really believe it. She thinks the whole thing is ridiculous, basically, and sends Nick off on his way. David says again to Nick, look, hanging around here is not going to help anyone. Let's just bugger off home then. So Toyah has a go at Nick back in the flat later after this pop that he had at Rowan. Leanne comes home and says, look, we need to talk about what's been going on here. She says, look, I've not been a great sister recently. I know that, but I've actually been really hurt with you saying you didn't want me involved in your treatment, Toyah. Rowan's been talking to me and I've made the decision. I'm going to withdraw with love. I will be actively disconnecting. I hope you understand. More Institute talk, actively disconnecting, withdrawing with love. So she's basically saying, I'm going to have nothing to do with you anymore because it's not good for my mental health. I think she's maybe kind of saying it's not good for you if I'm involved because I seem to be making it worse. But really, she's showing which side her bread is buttered. She's putting her flag squarely in Team Institute rather than Team Toyah, Team Battersby, and that's the end of it. It came across as so cold, but like I said earlier, I'm totally there to forgive Leanne when she realises at the end that she's been made a fool of here by Rowan, by Luke, should we call him? I don't know. So Nick has words with Leanne later, and he can't believe what she's doing, and she says, well, Toyah said you wanted this. Nick says, well, it's not. She needs us right now. Well, no good, says Leanne. My mind's made up. Later on, Toyah talks to Nick and says, look, if you keep taking my side over Leanne's, she's going to realise what's happened between us and we will all lose. Toyah has been thinking about this all along. Nick's been following his heart a little bit more too much with this, and his pants. And Toyah is kind of thinking, she's using her brain, thinking this is not going to end well for anybody if this secret comes out. We're not together, she tells him. And Nick's like, okay, I'm going to back off a little bit. That must have hurt Nick a little bit, because although he knows it, he's the one who's clearly developing the feelings more. And I'm not saying that Toyah's not at all. I don't think that she's mega fancying him at the moment, but I don't think it would take too much to turn her, or it wouldn't do if she wasn't already in the middle of this horrible quagmire of stuff at the moment that she's in. So he says, look, I'm fine, I'm going to back off. Heads over to number 5 where Gemma's been babysitting Sam and bumps into David on the street, who's he goes, what's going on today? That's not like you. That's more my kind of thing, having a go at someone and taking a pop at them in public. Are you and Toyah still? Nick says no, but David realises he still wants to be with her. Nick says he opens up about how upset Toyah's diagnosis made him feel, more than just the usual sadness and fear that you'd feel. It's natural to feel when a close family member gets a diagnosis like that. But he says, I can't help how I feel. I think I'm falling in love with Toyah. So that's where we're left with at the end of this. He's openly admitting it now, and I think that it is going on a little bit in Toyah's head as well, but she knows that it can't. I don't think it's going to be too long before there's another kiss and maybe more. Toyah will probably try to resist, but he is being so kind to her over everything medical that's going on with her when nobody else seems to be. And it's true what she was saying to the nurse. There's nobody. I don't have a great support network. Well, yeah, she hasn't got loads of other friends on the street. Supposedly, Fizz is her friend. I'm sure that, I don't know, Roy, I know he's going through his own traumas at the moment, would be there for her. Even somebody like Dr. Gaddis, her old boss, maybe. Maria. There are other people that Toyah could potentially open up to, but she's been so trapped in stories with just such a tiny number of people at the moment that it wouldn't make sense for us to, as viewers maybe, to see her opening up to these characters that she hasn't had anything to do with for so long. So Nick is showing her a bit of kindness, so it makes sense for her to be drawn towards it, I suppose. That's kind of it with that story. It's, as I say, I'm faultless performances. I'm still loving the Institute stuff. Rowan's brilliant. Jane Danson, wonderful. I have got awful lot of sympathy for Jane Danson. Oh, not for Jane Danson, sorry, for Leanne, when it seems like a lot of the rest of the internet haven't. But maybe my forgiveness of Leanne just comes from the fact that I am so dead against Nick and Toyah getting together, and then it's just manifesting in no, Leanne, it's not her fault. I don't know. But anyway, that's enough of me talking on my own for a little bit. I hope everyone understands why we need to do this. But yeah, we just don't really like this kind of story. So that's another reason why I hope it's over soon, so that we could just get back to normal a bit more. It's very rare that we have to do this. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be over soon, and then we get back to normal. Because I'm sure that one person talking on their own doesn't make that interesting a podcast. But, this is the second time we've done it like this, after Sinead's cancer storyline 5 years ago. But anyway, let's talk about some other stories, some lovely, much lighter storylines that are not at all depressing, that also happened in this week's Coronation Street.
Thanks for that, Michael.
That's okay, Gemma.
Good job. Well, I'm really proud. Right, I think I would like to talk about
God, I hope this doesn't run.
Lauren.
Yes,
What?
Lauren. I'm just saying I hope the story doesn't run forever. I don't think it will.
Well,
but,
we don't know.
We don't know. But Lauren seems to have, she's pregnant. That usually has some kind of time constraint on it. But maybe even sooner if you've been boggling. What was it that he was looking for online early?
How to induce pee.
How to induce pee. That's right, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it could be this one could end earlier than you think. But I will, of course, pass over to you to remind us.
I'm sorry for the ASMR here. That's my can of Coke.
That's a can of Coke right there.
Okay. Bolton Wanderer returns on Monday. It is Michael's day off, and he's trying to sleep in. He's got a kid.
Just like
and
real
a sister.
life. Like now is today is my day off.
And how was it?
Amazing. It's like chucking it down with rain. We just come back from the very soggy and overgrown allotment.
Does anybody want to come and help us sort the allotment out?
Yeah, please.
We've been unable to get to it because of various
Other
tragic
family
circumstances.
Yes.
So it's got a bit overgrown.
But
Right.
Michael's hasn't got an allotment to look after, so he's just twiddling his thumbs and heading over to the cafe.
Exactly. So Didi's like, right, I need you, please.
I need you to hump some drawers for me, yes.
And he's like, are they in a dome? Right, so Joel moves all his stuff to Didi's flat. What?
Nothing.
She says, you told me that you would sort out a new chest of drawers because I'm not having you use up my drawers. Not before we're married. And Michael said he would help us move the grotty old one from the flat. And I can't remember who was maligning this.
Joel doesn't like the drawers.
These are mid-century modern. These are very in. These are like, you buy them second hand for like 200 quid when your grandparents couldn't shift them for 50 quid about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
I suppose his biggest problem with them is just the fact that getting anything to and fro from that flat unnecessarily going in there is a bit of a pain, considering he's hiding out Lauren in there. Do people know that Lauren is in there?
Of course they don't. He's hiding her.
Where does Max think that Lauren is?
She said she's staying somewhere else.
Did she?
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
But Joel's just devastated now because he never had a set for his flat, and as soon as one appeared, now everyone wants to get in there. So he lets himself in. Lauren's just hanging about, really, really bored, saying, "Oh, there's a sale on at a maternity place in town." And
he wants to get her out of the flat.
Oh no, that's right. He's getting her out of the flat. Gives her £100. Go by yourself. So he then tells her the landlord's coming around later to get rid of the chest of drawers, and he wants her to keep away. So Ronnie decides to turn up for this great
drawer removal.
And it really is just an excuse for him to try to get Michael and Joel to get on, because everyone knows Michael hates Joel. Ronnie knows that they're going to be a family soon, so they have to get on. So he decides to supervise by drinking beer.
Yeah.
Which I think, great. They start moving stuff around, and then Ronnie opens the fridge and sees all these ready meals in there. And Joel has to make some lame excuse that the decorators left them.
I love the Vinny's, not Vinny, I was going to call him Vinny because he's Vinter. Ronnie's just the audacity of like, I'm just going to have a snoop around. Why not? I've got nothing else to do. That's really that you say that the ulterior motive was to get Michael and Joel talking, but really just anybody would do it. It's great having a snoop around supposedly empty flats.
Yeah, I love looking around empty
having
places.
A nose.
I love looking around full places. I don't mind. So they're appeased by this. Joel goes back to Dee Dee, and he's like, she says, I'm glad you had a nice bonding sesh with the Bailey boys. And he says, I need to get this key back to the letting agency, and I have to do it right now. So she goes to run a bath, and he texts Lauren to let her know that it's safe to go back to the flat. But she doesn't reply. And he keeps texting her, where are you? She's not replying. But she instead is walking down the street with all of her goodies that she's bought in this maternity sale. And Maria sees her, how nice.
Yeah, she's knocking on Max's door, isn't she? She wants to have a bit of a time with him, but he's not about. So nothing much comes of it, does she? She's there chatting with Maria.
Nothing comes of it.
No.
It's almost not worth talking about.
Then I shall stop.
Lauren finally gets back to the flat, and Joel's having kittens there. Where have you been? You didn't reply. What are you up to? And she says, I'm not your prisoner. I can do what I want. I'm fine. He's getting really frustrated, and he's like, you're not eating well enough. You need to reply to my text. Yada, yada, yada. Trying to feed her fruit and stuff. She's not interested.
There was an awful lot of feeding people veggies and fruit. Like we also had Mason being force-fed aubergine dal on Monday, didn't we?
Do you know what? I really fancy that. When I heard him say, I love aubergine, I love dal.
No, I don't fancy it. Do not.
Right, so Joel says, I'll check on you tomorrow, and I'm going to bring you some aubergine dal. She says, don't bother, I'm not interested. On Wednesday, he goes back to see her again. She's really bored. She doesn't want any scrappy apples. Nobody wants to eat apples. I like apples, but you've got to cut them up for me. I'm lazy. This generation that I'm part of.
She's got anything else going on in her life.
We don't peel oranges. We don't eat apples. Too much hard labour. No, she's got nothing else to do, so why can't she cut apples into fancy slices? She just wants to go to Ireland. They've got loads. They're the biggest exporter of bananas, so that's what she wants. She goes for a bath. The theme of this week is women going for baths.
So she's going off to. What's the delay here? Is it just this package of presumably
inducing
pregnancy or inducing labour drugs that he's
early premature labour?
It's not that expensive to get plane tickets over to Ireland. I know there's all the other stuff that he's supposed to. He said he's going to help her find a flat and all that, but you can get a ticket to Ireland for probably less than £50, can't you?
We can't, but some people can.
Yes. So
cost us more than that.
You'd have thought that she could probably just take herself over to Ireland.
Yeah, it's Northern Ireland, a different place. So Joel's like, when she's in the bath, Joel phones someone and says, I need this package. When is it turning up? It's obviously this induced pee.
Who's he actually speaking to? Has he got some kind of relationship with the local drugs dealer over the phone?
I know, pharmacists.
Yeah.
You can't really do that.
I suppose when he was Googling it, he wasn't, there isn't a nice, friendly website that provides the sort of drugs that he wants, is there? So maybe he's just got the information online and he's had to ring around the dodgy drug dealers himself to find it.
I know who it is.
Is it Dean?
No.
Who?
It's Clippy. Looks like you're trying to induce pee. Can I help you? Yes, you can actually, Clippy. Could you get me some drugs to get rid of this pregnant woman?
That is a reference that lots of people won't get.
Oh God, remember the days? I felt so grown up writing a letter with Clippy. Okay, so Lauren goes to see Max, and he's trying to reassure her that people care about her like him, and then he's talking to her about the time she got together with Bobby, and also asks her, wasn't she seeing someone else at the same time? And she's, was that Nathan? And she's like, I'm not talking about that.
She just desperately tries to change the subject, doesn't she? She's
like saying, did Bethany ask you to do some digging? And he's like, no, sorry, I thought we were, can't we just hang out and talk? And she's like, well, mates don't treat each other like this.
Was Max overstepping boundaries there? I didn't feel that he was.
No.
He's just he's just genuinely been quite kind, and
honestly,
she's been disappeared for months. Of course you've got to have questions.
Him and Bobby are just like being absolute doormats here. It's because they fancy her and they're scared to like upset her, but if she had a girlfriend, like a female friend, they'd be like, where the hell have you been, you stupid bitch? I've been looking for you for months. I thought you were dead. I was recording that creepy cropper down the road and accusing him of murdering you. What the hell? There's a bloody great big patch of blood. Can you explain that?
Yeah, they're just going very softly, aren't they?
Oh, don't upset the pregnant lady because she won't shag me later. Right, anyway, she's like, I'm not having this, I'm off. Mates don't treat each other like this. She gets home, Joel's there, and he's bought her a TV. Well, he hasn't bought her a TV, he's got an old TV.
Yeah.
She's not impressed with this because she just wants to go to Ireland. And if you didn't know, all of these episodes have been sponsored by the
Irish Tourist
Board. They've got great butter. He says, I haven't got the money yet. She doesn't believe him, neither would I. He's just give me 100 quid and some crappy apples. He's got the money to go to Ireland.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, look, it's going to be worth waiting for. Don't you worry about this.
I assume that... I don't think it can be too long before this package arrives. I'm kind of hoping for next week we'll... See, how long was the... She gave him like a month, didn't she?
He said you'll be out of here within 2 weeks.
Yeah, she sent that message to Swain.
That's right. Right.
Delayed sending or whatever it's called. So it's going to have to happen soon. But yeah, do you think that she's going to end up taking these medicines? Is it going to work? Is this baby going to be gone?
No.
Is she going to outsmart him? If he sticks it inside an apple, it would be like a poison apple from Snow White, wouldn't it?
Should you do that thing where you go, thanks, and you throw them behind your shoulder and hope they don't rattle on the floor? No, I think she'll take them and she'll go, ow, my stomach, what's happening? And maybe he'll panic and take her to the hospital, or maybe he'll panic and run away again. But she'll go to the hospital and they'll be like, oh, did you try to induce pee? I hope you didn't.
I wonder what the time period is that he's expecting this to happen. Like, does he want to give her some medicine just as she's getting on the plane, and then it's not his problem anymore, or does he want her to lose the baby now and then?
Michael, people like that are why Ryanair charge so much money.
He just wants her out of his life completely. So it's in his best interests for her to be over an island pretty quick, isn't it? Presumably, just not with a baby, so she can't come back hounding him for child maintenance. Do you really think
that's what... I still don't know what his plan is.
It's not completely obvious to me.
It's very sinister, but it's very obscure.
The fact that he's going after this medicine means he clearly isn't interested in the baby, and that's just a ruse.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't care whether she dies or not, but he definitely doesn't want the baby around, which is funny because when he reacted, I kind of thought he was like, a baby, a boy. Like when she said it was a boy, he definitely pricked his ears up, you know?
Did he?
Yeah, I think he did.
I don't know whether he...
But then she said, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl.
He doesn't want to kill her accidentally with this, does he? Because he's had a very, very lucky escape that she didn't die when she got that bludgeoning, since she had that miracle escape then.
Well, I don't know. It really does depend on whether he thinks it can be traced to him. Because if he thinks he can get away with it, he probably wouldn't mind it if she...
But if she does die... with the traces of the drug in the system, it's going to be traced to him at some point, isn't it?
Well, it really depends on what the writers want to happen. You know, if he kind of... Or he could set it up to make it look like she's decided she didn't want to keep the baby.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
She didn't know what to do about it because she's not shown any good judgment previously. She's got no real sense of what to do, which is not surprising. I don't blame her at all. She's not had a very good upbringing or parentage, so why on earth would she make really sensible, mature decisions at all? But just say, yeah, she must have decided. And I mean, honestly, at that point, is anyone DNA testing the baby to find out who the father was? If you think it's Nathan's, I don't think that's a routine thing. I think that would be an incredibly invasive thing to do to somebody who's just had their baby. Yeah.
I'm quite surprised so far, now you bring up Nathan, that we've had nothing from him.
I would be straight back in my van, driving past Bethany, splashing her with water.
Yeah. So it wasn't me then.
It wasn't me, you cow.
Although actually, no, hasn't she said that it was him?
Yeah, but she says he's not pressing charges.
Yes, that's right, yeah. But he should still have been let out by now, or at least, we should have seen him given the good news. It feels like since they brought him back in, we've had so few episodes with him actually starring in. So
Nathan fans going up the wall.
I know, he's notable by his absence. I would say Bobby is as well. I'm not really complaining about it, but I'm glad that Max is being involved to some extent. But it really does just seem to be the story of Joel and Lauren, doesn't it, with a sprinkling of Dee Dee, and it feels like they could possibly expand it a little bit more if they wanted to, because nobody was caring about Lauren being missing in the weeks running up to her reveal, and it feels like she's no longer the talk of the town either anymore, is she? Like nobody, she's like, anyway, she's back, let's get on with our other issues that we've got.
A few people kept remarking upon how extraordinary it was that she wasn't dead. Again, nobody's shown any concern for her whatsoever. Like, you'd think that Swain would be, do you need some kind of support? Do you need a social worker? She's a vulnerable woman. She's homeless.
I know, it's almost like she's been given a slap on the wrist and say, well, don't go missing again then.
Yeah, stop hiding with your invisibility. Give me that back. You're not having this anymore, this invisibility cloak. You're just using it for evil. Even
Carla seems to have cooled down, or in that we haven't seen her since she went off on one at Lauren the other week.
Because Bobby told her she was being unreasonable.
Well, I'm still enjoying the Joel and Lauren scenes for what they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's feeling a little bit cramped at the moment, and they could do with spreading their wings a bit.
Oh, what's going to happen?
Well, I guess we'll find out more next week. So the Mason and the Carpenter storyline next. I really actually enjoyed this. I didn't know what to expect from a Mason return, and my loyalties have been thrown all over the place this week, because I genuinely was feeling on Monday, sucker that I am, that he'd maybe had turned over a bit of a new leaf, but then on Wednesday again he's like, no, not really, I'm just as nasty as I ever was. So how did you feel about Mason?
Mason, yeah, he is, don't think he's learned his lesson. Maybe Stu's going to have to teach him.
But did you think that he was on Monday's episode? Because he was acting, I felt sorry for him when he'd been beaten up by his brothers supposedly. I don't know whether we'll ever see these brothers on screen. I genuinely thought, oh, poor mate Mason for a bit.
I didn't.
I know. I suppose it's just part of my forgiving nature.
I'm not forgiving.
So what happens this week then? So we got Dylan. Remember last week didn't turn up at his shift at Speed Dial, which Sean's interrogating him about, and Dylan's like, oh, I'm just worried about Mason being out, but Sean says it's fine. Look, your trial shift's been moved to today. Everything's going to be all right. So he turns up at Speed Dial later, and Stu's very jovial in welcoming him, saying, oh, here you go to this, and this is what you need to do here, and here's where you do your washing up and all that. Like, that was an exact Stu impression. I enjoyed Stu this week for the first time in a very long time. He didn't irritate me. He was just kind of very kindly and understanding.
Stu was lovely this week. If he had been like this the whole time, he would have been much more tolerable. It's when he got jealous and he and Yasmin were having the troubles that he became unlikable. But I want to just add here a troubling thought.
What?
Are Coronation Street trying to make Stu and Yasmin the new Roy and Hayley?
How do you mean?
Couple that own an establishment for eating, that have no children of their own, who are trying to adopt waifs and strays and to be nice and kind and generous to ne'er-do-wells and scallywags.
They are genuinely kind and They do want to help out in nature. Yasmin particularly has always been a bit of a mother kind of figure of the street.
I mean, her job was being a librarian. You don't become a librarian if you hate people.
You might do. You might just say, I don't care about real people. Just give me a book. That's all I need.
I just want to put books away.
So the way that they treated Mason this week didn't seem out of character. I don't think they're going down the Roy and Hayley route with it necessarily. I think they're a bit old to go adopting.
I'm kind of half joking with that question, but I do think it's worth thinking about, because they are kind of, do you know what I mean about they're getting into that groove? They're kind of easing into this. Yeah, just this kind of status.
Maybe. So he's now working at Speed Dial, having this little trial. But then later on, he's showing up at the precinct, going home, because I'd forgotten that do he and Sean still live in the precinct?
Yes, they do. I forgot this too.
Yeah, so that's what he was letting himself up the steps for. So Mason's lurking in Scally's alley, and he's got a very bloodied nose. Maybe he's got a limp. He's not looking too right. Then Stu comes along to the play park. Why? I don't know. But he sees Mason there sitting on the swing, looking very sorry for himself. And he's like, oh, what are you doing there? You're looking pretty rough. Stu doesn't know who Mason is.
No.
There's no reason why he should, apart from the fact that in Coronation Street, everybody seems to know everybody. And it does catch you off guard when somebody doesn't recognise someone, doesn't it? It's like, what do you mean you don't have their phone number?
Yeah, I know.
It was one of those sort of situations. Yes, the bullying storyline has been huge, but really, Stu and Yasmin have had nothing at all to do with it. So we have to suspend our disbelief here and go, okay, this to Stu, this is just some waif out in the precinct.
Yeah, I mean, it's more realistic that people don't know.
Yeah.
Half these people.
So Stu saw Mason last week bedding down in Villains Alley, didn't he? And he recognised him from there. Yeah. And I guess it kind of makes more sense for Stu to want to help him out, considering his own history with homelessness.
Yeah, when I saw him looking at him bedding down, I did think, yeah, Stu's like... I'm surprised he didn't go over then. Honestly, I was expecting him to go over and be like, hey, bye.
Yeah, maybe he had the guilt eating at him over the weekend. I probably should have done something then. He was not the good Samaritan on Friday, but he made up for it on Monday.
He went up to him and went, here you go, lad, and gave him a guitar. This is what you need.
Gave him a bit of Saint Tui, and Mason's like, I don't need it. I don't need your help. I'm not going to rat on the people.
No, he said, I can give you food. He didn't give him food then.
Oh, yeah, okay. Mason says, look, I'm not going to rat on the people that did this to me, that blooded me up. Although he very quickly does by dropping his brother into it.
Yeah, I'm not going to rat on them. My brother. Oops.
I hope that at some point during this story, and I don't know how long Mason's back in the show, we get to see some of his extended family. Because they've been mentioned before, haven't they? Gary, I remember telling Maria that Mason's family were a bit of a rough lot around the estate.
Is that how we put it?
Yes.
They're a bit of a rough lot.
They're a bit of a rum-do, those they're Radcliffe, is that? But anyway, Stu says, look, come back to Speed Dial with me. It's going to be fine. Because he's refused to go to A&E. And so he's also calling Stu an old perv for hanging around the park.
Charming.
But he still accepts eventually. Stu's off to come back to Speed Dial. So they go back there and he's got this spicy aubergine dal. Right on cue, of course. Sean and Dylan come down the stairs. Dylan's like, bloody hell, what are you doing here? Runs back up again, and Sean tells them exactly who Mason is, and we get another lovely little shouting performance from Anthony Cotton there, quite rightly, sort of kicking off, even though they shouldn't know who he is. I don't blame Sean at all for having a go at him.
No.
And Yasmin.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a bit... Do you know what this reminded me of? Because Dylan was there as well, and he ran away, didn't he? Yeah. When he saw Mason. It reminds me of when the puppies come over for the day, and Abby sees them and run away.
Yes, exactly
the
like
same,
that.
isn't
I'm sure
it?
our
Like, oh
listeners
no, I can't believe it.
Can understand that reference. So Mason says Sean goes off at it after a bit, and Mason sort of starts the sob story to Yasmin and Stu about saying, "Oh yeah, I've done some bad stuff. I'm not like that anymore." So he stays, finishes off his dal, and then talks about what happened with Dylan and Liam and saying, it was the other boys, they made me do it. I had a knife for my own protection. I was never going to use it. Now I've paid the price. 2 months in young offenders. I was beaten up every other day. Oh, it was terrible. It was. Learnt my lesson now, Governor. And Stu says, look, you're going to have to leave. And Mason understands, gets up and goes. Is there any truth in this whatsoever then? Or is it all the story to try? What is he trying to get? He was, at the park, he didn't seem interested in getting Stu's help at all.
No, I think it is true. I think, but I also can't.
What bits of it are true?
I don't really care.
What? Which bits of it are true? Because the knife.
I don't think
wasn't just for his own protection.
No. All the stuff he's saying about I got beaten up in young offenders, it was awful, blah blah blah. I think he's learned his lesson insofar as that he's not going to get caught next time.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Well,
he wasn't in prison for bullying people, was he? He was in prison because he had a knife. That's the only reason. He's learned his lesson there, but he's not overcome his manipulation and picking on people.
Clearly,
he's now had it reinforced really because he's been trapped in this place with these guys that are bigger than him, and then he's gone home and his brother's done the same thing, which is why he's homeless. Because a lot of people were saying, why is this kid sleeping on the streets? He's obviously not want to live in a house with his brother who's beating him up. But now it's just reinforcing this idea that when you're big and strong, you pick on weaker people and they kind of deserve it.
Well, if he's had months of being picked on,
Yeah.
then he's just going to want to take his frustrations out
yeah.
on someone else now, which is what he does to Dylan. Do you think there is any hope whatsoever or any, is there any point to them even trying to do this to turn Mason into a goodie, to try and show his redemption story? Could Mason be, a long-term, as much as any character ever is, character on the street, or is this just the beginning of his exit story?
It's difficult, isn't it?
It's not like they're lacking teenagers. They don't need a character of Mason's age, another one.
There's almost nobody on Coronation Street who cannot be redeemed. Even somebody who's a killer now, Coronation Street has kind of crossed that threshold where they said before, soap justice exists and you'll never get away with it. Gary's got away with it. Lots of people would say Tracy's got away with it.
Yeah, but Gary and Tracy were always kind of hero characters, i.e. they were main characters who the story forced them to do.
She, as Kate Ford, she was definitely a villain.
Only low key villain, not in the same way as Mason. He's been the major antagonist on this bullying story. There's not been any redeemable features to him so far, but Tracy was always a bit of a comedy villain. Gary was always like, I'm just doing it for the good of my family. We have seen absolutely nothing so far to make us want to like Mason.
But my point is not that they're comparable, but that once you start to push the envelope a bit, they're pushing the boundaries, and who's to say that this is not another example that they'll push this boundary and say, well, he's learned his lesson, he's young. I mean, and also I would agree with that. There are loads of people who who they probably wouldn't tell you, have stories about they were horrible as a kid.
Yeah.
And he was,
He was especially vile. But...
He was very vile, but it was it was Liam's. So other people, different people react in different ways, and I think that he. I don't know.
I just think it's very sad if you think you can't redeem somebody at his age.
Yeah.
Because what is he? 17 supposedly, something around that. 16, 17. If you think that somebody has gone down throw him in the bin for what he's done, there's no coming back for it, then that's a bit of a sad state of affairs, really. And I know he's a soap villain and everything, but because I do quite like the actor, I wouldn't mind seeing him redeemed. But if they do decide, that's not what they're going for, we've got enough teen characters, we need to show soap justice prevails overall, he's a villain, therefore he will get, is he going to actually stab somebody this time and get locked up for good? That feels like probably the more likely path. My thing would be, I wouldn't mind if they redeemed him if it was part of Liam sort of overcoming his trauma. Yeah. If Liam
forgave him or if he felt like he could move on, that would be okay. Maybe completely unrealistic, but... And I don't know how you'd feel if you were watching it and you had been bullied, or you knew someone who had been bullied to the extent that Liam was, and how he thought he would take his own life and so on. I don't know. Would that make you feel good or bad? I don't know.
So many people have watched this and empathised with Liam and thought, "Oh, I've been in this situation. Like this is exactly thing has happened to me." It's not going to be very fun for them to see, their tormentor as portrayed on screens, being saying, "Oh, he's not such a bad lad." Could it be
empowering to see that Liam's the bigger person and he's like, "No, I'm taking back control of my life and I am going to forgive you for my own inner peace."
Yeah,
but then again, sometimes when you are treated badly, you do get fed up with these bloody redemption storylines, and you just think, no, I don't feel like I need to be magnanimous to all the people that have ever wronged me. I kind of want revenge. So to me, I don't care either way. If Mason's back to be triumphed over, then fine. If he's back for redemption, fine. I think either way, I really trust Corrie to do a good job on this.
I suppose when he had his first exit, it was the courts who were the ones that had the final word in him disappearing.
And again, it wasn't. He didn't actually get justice for how he was treated, did he?
No, it was just
to do with the weapon,
for having the knife.
And Dylan and Mason both were only punished for having a weapon, not for being arseholes.
Yeah. We didn't have a whole lot of this on Wednesday.
And I noticed Dylan's got away with it completely.
He's totally, hasn't he? A little bit of this on Wednesday. It basically involves Dylan bumping into Mason on the precinct, who drags him off into Scally's alley and making it very clear that he's going to regret being a grass. He's putting him in a bit of a headlock, grabbing him around the arm, and this is the bruise that Yasmin later sees on Dylan's arm in the cafe. And it's like, "Oh, what's going on with you then?" Dylan just blames it on the football. So I think I wouldn't mind a redemption story, but equally I don't need another story that goes on for too long of Mason just picking up where he left off. As good as the bullying story was, it needs to have a little bit, for me, something a little bit more different than, and where was I, I'm going to go back to bullying Dylan.
Oh, I see what you mean. It does feel really...
They fall into that again, and maybe the only difference being Stu's the one saying, "Oh, no, what you're talking about? He's changed, I don't know. I don't understand Mason's brain. To say, I would have always said that bullies are very casual and they just pick on somebody who's weak. And but Mason seems to be driven by this deep hatred that he's come back now to get revenge almost. Is that what he's there for? Does he want to get revenge on? He really, really hates Liam that badly. It feels like it. It was, it must be still sticking with him. Otherwise, why would he be sleeping rough in Victoria Street? I mean, of any alley in the whole of Weatherfield that he should have chosen to bed down, he chose the one that was literally opposite the apartment of his old victim. There's got to be something kind of simmering there that he wants to get off his chest.
I mean, it makes sense that you would go somewhere you knew.
But he's got his estate that he grew up.
I know, but can I just point out that if you're trying to escape your brother, you're not going to go sleep in the alleyway next to your house, are you? Because your brother will find you and kick you in the head.
That's true, but I still think it was probably a little unwise of him, unless it was part of his genius agenda of revenge.
If I became evil and started kicking you about, and started kicking you about, and you were like, right, my only choice is I'm gonna sleep rough. Where would you go? Would you go somewhere you knew?
Well, I wouldn't go around here.
No, because I'd kick you in the head.
Where do you think I would go then?
Well, back to where we used to live, or back to where you work.
Maybe.
You wouldn't go where you work because people would know you, and that'd be a bit awkward, wouldn't it?
But we've
only... What are you doing on the floor, Mr. Johnson? Look, they don't pay teachers enough, that's all I'm saying.
But I assume that Mason, as a bit of a street kid, knows more than just the school and the Coronation Street area where we've seen him. Yeah, I imagine that he's quite a bit of a roamer.
Here's my argument. Weatherfield is a lot nicer than wherever he has come from.
This bit of Weatherfield.
This bit of Weatherfield, you're less likely to find evil women to kick you in the head, aren't you? And your brother kicking you in the head.
Maybe.
Than anywhere else. It's somewhere he knows, it's relatively safe, and he knows secret places. Villain's Alley, Scally's Alley, cream top of the cream, of the pops.
What?
To sleep in.
Right, okay, well, let's see. My curiosity is piqued with this story. I'm glad that we've got Mason back, and including Stu and Yasmin is surprisingly working for me, and I'm surprisingly finding myself not groaning when we get a scene inside Speed Dial, and it's been a long time since that's happened. So thumbs up for me for this story. Abby's story, Gemma, and this is where we get all of the Debbie stuff this week. The online was aflame with joy at the amount of Debbie Webster that we got on Wednesday's episode, saying more. It's a case of, if we got more, would it not feel so special? But,
no, I disagree. There are some characters I definitely would say less is more, but not Debbie Webster. More is more, just like her earrings.
Yeah.
Debbie really has the makings of an iconic Corrie character.
They just won't let her.
She was in the 90s and they had such a smaller cast and everyone had more face time. She would be easily, top 10's people's all-time greatest characters. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. She's just a joy to watch.
She really is.
She's great. And she's another one of these characters that it's in the performance as well as the lines.
Yeah, she did get some great lines.
Yeah, she got great lines.
But the way that Sue delivered them, you're right, she's so camp.
Because she's so charismatic and she's got such a great delivery, I think it's easier to write for her because I can imagine Debbie saying almost anything.
Mm.
And again, it would be funny.
She's just got that little, sparky, spunky, sort of small person's energy of like, I've been fighting back and I don't care that I'm littler than everybody else.
Yeah.
And like, we're in the Rowan thing when she was saying, don't bleed on my upholstery, and then she kind of picks this massive chair up and waddles away with it. She doesn't care.
She's like a chihuahua barking at a Doberman.
Yeah, it's exactly that. That is what we're getting with Debbie.
No conception of any fear whatsoever because her whole life she's been not been eaten by a Doberman yet.
So go on, do you want to run down what happened here?
On Monday, Kevin tells Debbie and Ronnie that Abby's back from seeing the twins today, and they're a bit worried because she might be upset having to leave the kids.
Yeah.
She comes back and Kevin's terrible at making a sandwich, which is a great joke because finally a man doesn't know how to cook.
Kevin's sandwich, the door stopped.
She was like gingerly pushing giant hunks of cheese back into the
as she was biting into it. That was great.
Although I can't relate to the idea that you eat a sandwich and then you can't eat anything else for the rest of the day. Or is she a snake? So she thinks Kevin's a bit on edge because he might be upset about Stefan, and he says, no, I promise you, it's fine. So they go to the pub. It's the Webby Debster family. Ronnie and Debbie are both there, and they're noting about how Abby's only talking about missing Jack. She hasn't. Well, did she say Alfie? She must have mentioned Alfie.
Yeah. And
not Kevin. She hasn't said I've missed Kevin.
Because when she left, they didn't part on good terms, did they? This was after that story where, over the course of 2 or 3 episodes, it was just Kevin and Stefan taking pot shots at each other. I can't remember what the last thing that happened was. Was it when Kevin punched him in the face? Because he'd gone through his drawers, he'd found his phone, and that drove this wedge between the two of them, and it seems like it's still some unresolved conversations that need to be had there.
So she decides she wants to go home, and Kevin's like, okay, and she's like, no, you can stay here. So when Kevin and Debbie are left alone in the booth later, Debbie's like, what's going on between you and Abby? And he says, I don't know, I think she's coming back, seems to have brought back all this deep fake trauma, but I don't want to really talk about it. So on Wednesday, Debbie finds Kev and Abby in the cafe and says, oh, I've got a chef from a rival hotel. We're doing a tasting menu. Come along for a free meal.
Going for one of them Michelin stars.
I've just come from watching some episodes of The Bear, and I can imagine the chaos that's going on behind those doors of the kitchen. Anyway, Jack Hope and some school friends are walking down Rosamond Street, And the boy, this annoying kid, starts making fun of Jack about Abby's video. And then Jack pushes one of the boys against the wall, and Debbie's walking past, and she's like, hey. And she, like, gets in the boy's face and kind of, like, smacks him and tells him to bugger off, which I thought was great, because to her, like, most people would be like, oh, God, I can't believe it, like, a grown-up, you can't do that to kids. But she's, like, the same size as them.
I know.
She was.
I loved, I can't remember what one of the boys was, like, talked about her being in the war, and she's like, I hope you're talking about the Falklands then again. And the other one was, what's the good Debbie line there? Oh no, it wasn't the Debbie. It was the boy when there was the boy saying, "My mum's a dinner lady, so nobody wants to watch a video of her," or something like that. Wasn't it? I can't remember.
It's funny writing.
There was just a really funny writing with all of that scene.
So she sees him off, and then she asks Jack and Hope what was going on, and Jack won't say. Oh, it's just banter. And Debbie says, like, come to the cafe for a chat. So then she tells him that he can tell her stuff he might not want to tell his dad, and she can keep it a secret. So he opens up. And he tells them that these boys have found some porno of Abby, but it must be fake. And Debbie says, yes, it is. And Kevin probably didn't tell you because he wouldn't want you to go looking for it or upset you or anything. And Jack says, please don't tell my dad that I know, because it'll just make him feel worse. And Debbie's very proud of him. And I did like this auntie-nephew conversation.
Yeah. She that was a lovely scene. She's not just great for the comedy.
She's actually a really good person with a sensible head on her shoulders. Yeah. She's logical. She's not like meltingly maternal like a lot of the other women are. She's just very good. She's like matronly, you know, like a good old-fashioned nurse matron who would take care of you, but in a non-sentimental way.
Yes.
And kick you out of bed when it's time for you to leave. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I love her. So, later on, we have the tasting menu at Goot.
This is my scene of the week so far. Oh, no, it wasn't. This is what there's in a minute. Because
then.
Yeah, Stefan comes in first, doesn't he? He's got this pair of associates, and she goes up to him and is like, you're not welcome here. Obviously, because of the...
deepfake.
Well, yeah, the deepfake and everything else involving Corrie.
He's not been a nice guy.
No.
So he's
well,
like...
it's Corrie. He's the dad of the person that kicked her now sister-in-law's son to death. So, of course, she doesn't want him there.
Debbie's sister... What?
Debbie's sister-in-law is Abby. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I was trying to go through Ronnie.
No.
I was like, what's Ronnie got to do with it? Anyway, so... she's like, you're not welcome here, you're not having a business meeting, I don't care what you booked in advance, get out, if you don't leave I'm calling the police. And he eventually goes and he's like, you're gonna regret it. And she's like, I don't think I will, actually. So Kevin and Abby arrive and Debbie hands them the menu, which is in French, Michael.
What was it? The Laguda Chariot Square. Yeah.
This
was fantastic writing. Fantastic, right? Yeah. Well, I can't remember. Did you take a screenshot of this?
I've got a picture.
Yeah. So it's called the Taste of Chariot Square, and Kevin's like, what's the Gout of Chariot Square? What else did they pick up on there? You had Abby saying seafoam. What's that then? And Debbie's like, it's just frothy stuff. Can you eat it? What else did they have? Do gooseberries have ribs for the...
They don't. I don't know where they got this menu from. It was just a bunch of nonsense, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was perfect. Absolutely perfect for a great comedy scene.
Rhubarb Collins with accompanying amuse-bouche of asparagus and duck egg with truffle emulsion, cured meats, salt-baked celeriac and onion ash. The worst thing on this menu is beef bones and whey soured onions, drip-fried bread with grated heart. I think AI wrote that, honestly. It sounds insane. But I quite like the look of the scallops and sea vegetables with seafoam.
I thought that having Kevin being the recipient of this menu was perfect as well, because he is probably among anyone on the street the least likely to find it appetising. Debbie should have probably known better, to be honest. I would have thought that maybe Abby might have given a pop at something. But in the end, Kevin just decides he wants a steak, and just to make him feel even more working class and Neanderthalish, he wants it well done. And Abby's like, thumbs up to that as well.
Yeah, only oafs like their steak well done.
And Jack. So that completely she falls flat on her face. And I don't think that there's going to be any developments with this new tasting menu. It feels like it was just written to have a funny little skit where Kevin and Abby don't understand what this menu is.
It's not a new joke. It's been going on for decades, isn't it? That working class people don't like poncy food. But, okay, they want steak and chips. Who can say no to steak and chips?
It feels like at the end of this story, the end of this week, it almost feels like it's done. I don't know whether it is, because Stefan's still lingering about. But was this just a welcome back Abby story? Now let's tie it in a little bow. Although she's not been away too long, has she?
No, I mean, they have a nice meal, and Abby and Kevin kind of seem okay with each other.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, basically, that's all.
Here's a question, Michael.
What?
Stefan versus Debbie. Could there be sexual tension?
I certainly hope not.
Could there be rival business brains going at it?
Yeah, that's maybe a bit more appealing to me.
I mean, because she got involved with old
Ray Crosby. Yeah. But the difference is Ray Crosby's son didn't kick her sister-in-law's son to death.
Yeah. No, it didn't happen.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. It doesn't feel like there was a whole lot of weight behind it. But yeah, please just give Debbie more to do. This was, I think, if you were a Corrie writer and you're told, oh, and you can include Sue Devaney in this script, what a gift that is. She's like, it's like Sally. She's not as noticeable, her absence isn't as noticeable as Debbie, but Sally Webster appears so infrequently on Coronation Street that when you're suddenly given a script that's got some brilliant Sally lines in, it just elevates the whole week.
If I was writing on Corrie, I would want to write for Jenny, Daisy and Debbie and Evelyn.
And Sally, surely. No?
Yeah, I guess so. It depends on what the scene was. If it's something sad, no.
Anyway, so that kind of takes us through all the storylines that aren't the Paul story. We're going to give it a pause here. We are. It's just going to be a little mini break for you listeners, because Friday's episode is all about Billy and Paul's happy day. We don't want to talk about Monday and Wednesday's bits here, do we? Let's all do it together after Fridays. So we're going to stop for a little while, but for you, it's just going to carry straight on.
Okay, it's
We're back.
Another day.
It's Friday now.
Day. Different room.
Chesney's birthday. Happy 30th, Ches. Yeah, we are in a different room. We're all different. We've had dramas of our own. If you've been looking on our Twitter, we just come back from the vets. Abby's been in a cat fight, bleeding all over the house, and she's just had to have her bum shaved so that the vet could check her out. But she's okay. She's just in a bit of a mood now, isn't she?
So we're not recording in the room with cream carpets.
No.
Although she probably is bleeding on the carpet because she's hiding under the bed.
Oh, is she? Oh, we won't tell if it's under the bed. She's all right, though. I think she did come off worse out of the two cats. But you don't want to hear about that, do you? You want to hear about what we thought about Friday's Corrie. Well, you can't, because we've got to talk about Monday and Wednesdays first. And after all the aggro that we went through to try and do that earlier recording so that we didn't have to record late tonight, it turned out that they put today's episode on ITVX early this morning, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
You found it.
Yes, I did. Because I want to watch the opening of the Olympics, and I thought, why do they do it early for football and not the Olympics? And I thought, maybe they do it early for the Olympics. And I looked and they did.
They did, yeah. So I don't know whether this is going to be here for the duration of the Olympics or whether it was just for the opening ceremony. It would seem odd to me to do it just for the opening ceremony.
I don't know whether they have evening events, because every Olympics is different, isn't it? I mean, that is in Paris, but so it's the same time zone as us.
ITV doesn't show the Olympics, does it? I thought it was just a BBC thing.
I know, but they're worried about competing.
Yeah. Don't worry, there's not a team ITV. I don't think they're going to get any gold medals.
Do you think if the different soaps had Olympic teams, who do you think would win?
Well, it depends,
I think it would be Corrie.
Do you reckon?
Bigger cast.
Yeah.
They got more to lose. They're Northerners, so they're more rough.
What events?
Not like, it's Egg and Spoon, Tug of War, Dominoes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Put James Bailey on the football team.
Yeah. Bring him back. Not. I don't know. Would it be a transfer from EastEnders?
Anyway,
he's living in London now, isn't he? Maybe he'd defect.
Yeah. It's now early evening on Friday, and we have seen Coronation Street, and by golly, what an episode that was. So that was very good. That was a very, very good episode tonight, but we can't talk about it yet, so we got to talk about the story leading up to it. They think it's Paul over. It's not yet. I said at the beginning of the episode that I didn't think he was going to be gone this week. But as we were watching it, I was like, oh, I think maybe he is.
I'll give you credit. Even though it looked like, Billy was there, he had the medicine in his hands, and he was just saying, are you absolutely sure? You said...
I don't know whether medicine's the right word.
Well, I'm trying to be
Go on, what did I say?
You said, I still don't think he's going to die today.
I did. I didn't think that he did.
And I was like,
he would.
You're delusional.
But they really had. Look, let's get to this quickly. So, do you want to do a quick rundown? As I had the floor for the Leanne story, do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what happened on Monday and Wednesday in this story first?
On Monday, Paul's got dry hands. It's very important that we make note of that. Someone's rubbing hand cream into them, and he's prepared apparently a speech to deliver to the family. Yesterday you've written, I assume tomorrow maybe.
Later.
Also, this occupational therapist is coming round tomorrow for a review, and I think everyone's a bit worried because the last thing they said was if he can't use the stair lift, then he can't leave the flat again. I can't believe this as well. This is so frustrating because, like they said, Benny was saying, they literally put this in for Paul and now they can't use it.
And how long has it been in there? Months.
I know it's not anyone's fault particularly, and obviously, where did they get it from? They got it from somebody else, didn't they? It's not like an MND.
Yeah, no, I think it was one of Billy's parishioners. Maybe,
yeah, so it's for elderly people who presumably would have more control over their bodies as they're going up and down. It's just so frustrating. It can't be adapted. You think it would be able to be adapted?
Yeah. Well, I've wondered as well, like, and I know it doesn't fit the story, but how easy would it be for Paul to get, well, for Billy as archdeacon to get accommodation for Paul to live in?
I think a lot of people have said, like, he's supposed to have a house. Where's the house?
It's got a heat pump and everything, this deaconry.
It's really wound me up when he was being all so sanctimonious, like, I'm going to give it away to people. It's like, okay.
Yeah, now but you regret that act of charity now, don't you, Archdeacon?
It was silly at the time, and now, well, nobody's brought it up, so I think they're all over it.
But I think it is important that Corrie's highlighted the issue that it's not just, wave a magic wand, click your fingers and a house drops in front of you. This
is the trouble though, isn't it? They try to show situations that really impact vulnerable people who don't have a support system more than anyone else. But all the people in the show, by virtue of the fact that it's about a community, have a lot of support.
Yeah.
So, I always go on about Sean's homelessness, but he's got a great support network. People don't end up on the streets before they've exhausted their support network, which is what he did.
Well, could Paul have moved into number 5? There's not possibly.
What, Gemma's?
Yeah.
No.
It's a bit crowded.
I think, but judging from what happened at the end of Fridays, I think they could have done a swap.
Yeah,
those kids certainly fit into Summer's room. Summer's there just like
5 kids sleeping into Summer's bed. Has she got a luxury king size or something?
Yeah, she's like, oh, watch out for the chaise lounge and be careful about the pool room. I don't want the children falling in.
The pool room or the pool room?
No, not the pool room.
I don't know. And that everybody there has got. Glenda's got a house that's empty. She doesn't know Paul particularly well, but I think it is important that they've highlighted the issue that it's difficult to get accommodation. Even off screen, Dan Brocklebank and Peter Ash have signed a letter recently to appear in the press that highlights the need of housing adaptations for people with MND. Yeah. So it really is an issue, and it's silly because it can take so long to get accommodation. By the time you got it, it's too late.
In a different place to where you're living. It's a really emotional thing, especially because you're leaving your home for the last time. If you go somewhere else that's more suited to your needs, you're giving up your home.
Exactly. Do you want to live somewhere completely alien to you, but with access to outside?
For the last 2 months of your life. It's awful.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where they're doing brilliantly, but I don't think they always have the plausibility to cover all the bases they want to. I think sometimes they need to pick, maybe Paul. That's what we had. What was his friend? What was her name?
Who? Shelley.
Shelley would have been the perfect example of somebody who really didn't have anybody if she needed help. She had her personal assistants, but she didn't have family or friends, apart from that annoying brother.
She lived in an upstairs apartment as well, so she was pretty trapped there, I suppose. Although, was her mobility better towards the end? I'm not sure. It certainly felt that her condition was not as severe as Paul's has become, and I never would have thought I'd say that because she was pretty.
She was very ill.
pretty ropey towards the end, but especially in today's episode, Paul's even worse. But yeah, I'm glad that they've highlighted the issue, but we've also, you know, as soap viewers are used to families who are struggling to find something suddenly have it appear in their laps, say, oh, why don't you live here? They're not doing that here, and yeah, all the better for it.
Yeah. So Paul says, I need to bang everyone's heads together today. Bernie, Kit, Gemma, I'm fed up with them arguing. So they all get gathered together, and Paul reveals the killer. No, sorry, that was a different show. Billy has a go at them for being impatient because Paul's there trying to talk and they're all yakking away, and this really was frustrating as well. They captured this really well. Like the idea of everything's moving so fast and everyone's yattering, and you can't. Everyone's got to be patient, but they're so emotional about what they're arguing about.
Paul can't be part of this argument.
No.
All he can do is, you know, turn the volume up on his speaker.
And he can't speak and react as quickly as they can.
No.
So he says, this was through his computer.
Yeah.
He's done this big speech, and he reads it. It was read out in his voice. I'm dying, so you know we'll be gone. I want to know that you're all talking. I need you to be together. Please, I'm playing the terminal card, but stop this. We are family. It takes so much more energy to hate than it does to love. I need all the energy I can right now just to breathe, to open my eyes each day. Don't make this a waste of my energy to get you all together. I need you all. And then he says, I need my mum.
Speaks out loud, doesn't it? I mean,
voice.
It was already a bit of a tearjerker by Monday's episode, but, you know, now looking back on it, that was small fry compared to what we got on Friday, wasn't it? But
it's also like, when I'm reading this out, I don't know how to read it out. I'm not going to do like an emotional kind of, because I feel like I was taking the mick if I started acting.
Stephen Hawking voice.
No, not Stephen Hawking voice. He hasn't got one of those.
No,
I'm saying I'm not going to perform it as though I'm tragically dying, because I'm not. I think it would be rude of me to try to.
I think they hit the nail on the head there by getting him to talk about the energy that it takes him just to, you know, stay alive each day, and they're just wasting it from what he can see.
I'm getting PTSD from when I had my appendix out. That's exactly how I felt. That's a joke, obviously. Later on, Bernie is apologising to Paul, and Paul says, you should apologise to Kit. And she's like, I've been doing this the whole time. And so she apologises again, and Kit's like, nah.
Every time that I think, oh, Kit's not so bad after all.
He's an arsehole, isn't he?
Yeah.
He says, I should never have tried to turn the twins against their mum. Maybe one day we'll get to where you want to be, but they're not really there now, and they don't hug each other. But
I think it was
Gemma
Wednesday's
hugs Bernie.
episode, wasn't it? Maybe when Kit says to Bernie, I don't like you.
I feel bad for him too, because this is just emotional blackmail on a nuclear level, isn't it? Like, you can't speedrun forgiveness because somebody else has got a terminal illness.
No.
But you can do a better job of faking it. I think if this wasn't a drama, you would expect that Kit would say, I don't like you, I'm going to pretend, please don't take this as anything other than I'm trying to make somebody's final days not as hellish as they could be.
I enjoyed the scene in the pub at the end where they were doing the guess the celeb on my head name.
Yeah.
And, they got a bit political with Donald Trump, didn't they? I can't remember who it was that had that on their head.
I saw some people going, Coronate, I'm not watching it anymore, stooped too low.
Who was it that had it? Because they said, "Am I a politician? Am I good or bad?"
Oh,
and somebody, I can't remember which character it was. Maybe it was Billy. Was like, "He's bad," and then I think it was Summer was like, "Oh well, you can't say that." I thought
Bernie was like, "No." I think if anyone's a Trump fan, I think Bernie secretly.
I don't think any of them are Trump fans. I think that it was Summer who was like, "Well, we can't say that. Nobody's inherently good or evil."
Bernie does. I know Bernie politically would not be aligned to him whatsoever, but in the same way that I think that some people say, like Piers Morgan, like sometimes he says things I agree with.
It's just I found it very interesting just because it was so rare for Coronation Street to do any reference to a politician, especially one that was an opinion.
They're not going to do it again though, are they? Because this was a massive faux pas because of he just had a political thing happen, didn't he?
Been shot in the ear.
That's very political. So maybe they will avoid that in the future, because I did see some people saying, how could you? I mean, imagine how terrible it would be to be Trump now. First you get nearly shot and then Coronation Street takes the mick out of you. How would you cope?
Yeah, I think maybe if that particular incident had gone a different way, maybe they would have cut that scene. Or hastily reshot. Peter,
not reshot.
Oh, no, reshot the scene.
Look, this isn't about politics.
No, but I really enjoyed that scene, and still just more fun stuff amongst the drama. Everything with this story has been fantastic this week, but it's still good they're trying to keep the balance right.
On Wednesday, Gemma, Paul and Summer are in the flat, and Summer asked Gemma about, are they going to move? You know, when are they going to get taken somewhere else? And Gemma's worrying because they could end up somewhere awful. And also, there's an estate agent that's come into number 5, and she's been asked to tidy up. And she's like, I'm bloody tidying up for them. So Summer walks past number 5, and she sees who the potential buyer is. And it turns out it's Kit. And it's Jackie. Jackie's the estate agent.
Jackie with an IE.
No, sorry, this is the OT. This isn't the estate agent. This is the OT in Billy and Paul's flat.
Yeah, sorry.
And she's, Jackie with an IE and Bernie with an IE. And she says, I'm here to investigate this stair lift. And she's tested it out, and she said, it's not safe. It also hurt my feelings because it was rude to me. So it's emotionally and physically dangerous. We need to get rid of it. You can't use it anymore. And Paul now realises that he's trapped in this flat, and they've got nowhere else to go. There's no other way of they're trapped. And the nurse is like, yep, sorry, you're going to have to stay in until you find somewhere else to go. Imagine this being your job. How awful must she feel? Because she literally is like, I can't make it safe for you. I can't tell you to use it. And I'm telling you not to, but it's not my fault. I can't do anything about the fact you haven't got anywhere to go. And Bernie's like, look, I know it's not your fault, but this is what do you expect us to do? So the OT's like, look, we'll fast track this request, but that's all I can do.
How fast is fast? That's what you'd be thinking. Every day that you're trapped in there is like hell. It's like you're in prison. And Paul is already imprisoned in his own body at the moment, so he's double prison.
Summer finds the Winterbrowns in the pub and tells them that Kit's been in the house. And Gemma's not happy about this. And when he comes into the pub, Gemma accuses him of being a Judas. And Kit's like, look,
I loved it when she sat Chesney on there.
How did she set Chesney on
She was just like, I can't remember. She's like, go and get him, Chesney. And Chesney's like, looks at him because he's like, 5 foot nothing,
What's he
isn't
gonna
he?
do, climb up
looking
him
up
and
at
then
Kit.
punch him in the face?
Kit looks down at him with a bit of a grin. Like,
go on then.
We both know you can't take me.
Listen, I'm not Daniel Osborne. I'm not afraid of you. So he says, look, I've got money from my mum and I don't have to wait for probate or anything because this isn't real. I'm rich now. Also, my dad didn't want any of the money. Don't ask questions. This is more complicated than you could possibly imagine, and it's going to come out in a future episode. But what if I bought this house and rented it out to you? What a good idea. I would not take her on as a bloody lodger, I'll tell you that for nothing, would you?
Well,
imagine how...
I'd be expecting some late payment. There'd be a kind of...
There's going to be a story,
happen, which I assume it will do, Gemma's going to try and kind of...
She's not going to try.
She will end up taking advantage of him.
I don't think she's going to take advantage.
No, she will attempt
inadvertently.
To say, look, can I just not pay it this month, or can I hold back a bit? And it's going to test his loyalty to her. Never
had a late payment before. Suddenly, can't pay your bills.
Yeah, so I found it interesting that they're going down this route because it kind of cements Kit as a bit more of a long-term character if he's the owner.
Just like Mr. Wormwood.
Yeah, well, maybe it's the Wormold.
Not the original
landlord of Coronation Street. I mean, just because you're the landlord, it doesn't mean you have to be in it for that long, and it doesn't mean that we can't get a new landlord very soon. But I've been wondering for a while, like, what's the point of Kit? How long is he going to be in? Has he got a long-term future in it? And just putting his name on the deeds does give him a little bit more job security, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. When Linda finds out about this, she's going to be jealous. She's I wish I'd thought of that. I could use it against them. Like, I mean, honestly, the payments it must cost to send Joseph to school would just as easily cover a mortgage in a house like that, wouldn't it? Surely. Yeah. How much is that house worth? I've got no idea, but I'm sure she's got a hefty deposit.
Yeah, so not money here anymore. She's been strangely notable by her absence. She's just come in and out throughout the year, hasn't she, Linda? Every now and then, and it's like, are you in the show or are you not? I'm not particularly fussed about whether she reminds me of Elaine. But she is very much an Elaine character, isn't she? Yeah. I'm not fussed whether we never see her again, but it's odd that they keep talking about her, but she's not appearing. I like her. I do like the fish out of water rich people that turn up every so often on Coronation Street, like Henry, and they're like, oh,
You really do eat fish fingers. I thought it was just an elaborate joke. Right, so Gemma's excited about this. She's planning refurbishments. 5 years ago, they were planning to build an extension, so perhaps they could afford to replace the boiler now. Bernie's saying to Kit, it's a really nice thing. And he says, well, the twins are family, but I don't like you and I never will. So don't even talk to me.
Yeah, so things are left with Kit, definitely.
Kit's
Definitely
like,
the villain again.
Kit's like a mean girl and trapped in a lad's body, isn't he?
Yeah. It still does make sense, I suppose, that he doesn't like Bernie after everything that she's done to him. It wouldn't necessarily be natural. Some people would forgive, but you can't just expect somebody to do so.
I wouldn't be very good at being horrible to somebody in their face.
No,
I wouldn't. I don't have the energy for that. Billy tells Paul on the Wednesday, let's have one nice day out tomorrow.
Yes. Let's plan for it. Let's have a whole special episode just dedicated to
ourselves. He's saying, look, you don't know how long we're going to be stuck in this flat. Once, we'll go out one more time and that will be it, basically. Yeah?
Yeah. And
one last hurrah.
Yeah. And so this leads us to Friday's Spectacular. So we first found out about this episode being a thing a couple of weeks ago. I tried to avoid looking into any spoilers or too much of spoilers about what to expect, although as it turns out, the synopses for the episode were relatively minor. They didn't say too much other than Paul was going to be taken around by Billy to take a turn about Weatherfield and some special places for him. And they put out a trailer.
Yeah, they did. They put out a trailer and they ended up using... I thought it felt to me like, this is a trailer, this footage is for the trailer only. But actually,
I don't think they do that anymore because we thought that for the...
I know, that's what I was going to say.
BGT week.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Say more.
I think that they're saving money by making sequences that with different cameras, because it was clearly with a different... Well, it looked to me like it was from a
it was a different visual setup to
so they can then just use it.
Yeah, and having the, they're in the Britain's Got Talent week, they had the backwards dropping coffee cup, and in this one they had the dream sequences with Paul. They all lend themselves very easily to trailers. I went into it. I actually thought we'd see more of it in today's episode because it really was just bookending the episode, wasn't it? The stuff inside Paul's head with all the orange and dancing around.
So earlier on I said, in the previous part of this podcast, I was like, I don't really want two-handers. I'm fed up. Like, they're really special, but this will be like the third one that we've had in like 7 months.
Yeah.
And I take it back because this wasn't a two-hander. I'm still on the fence about having so many like very special episodes so close to each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
So quick, it's just so different from the usual. And I wouldn't want to get, the thing is, I wouldn't want to get rid of either of them. I wouldn't want to say, well, we shouldn't have had the Lauren and Joel one, then this one, I think they were both really good. They were both
excellent. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I preferred tonight's episode. And I enjoyed the Lauren and Joel episode. Great script. Fantastic performances, but I think the fact that this one did centre around characters that I cared a lot more for certainly helped. They were both character pieces, and yes. I think the emotion, and the fact that it was Billy and Paul tipped it over for me. I was worried about what you would think about it because you weren't sure about the fact that it was going to be a sad episode, and you don't like sad things, do you?
I was really worried about watching this episode because it's not so much really the watching of it, but it's the talking about it, because it's a lot of responsibility to try to talk about something that's really serious and sad and tragic
without making too much of a downer of a podcast.
Well, it's not. I just don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to upset people. I want to reflect. When you see a great piece of art or something, you want to articulate how it makes you feel in a way that is, makes sense to everybody and conveys your feelings. And sometimes these really heavy episodes can get quite emotional to watch. And I also feel like I'm not really good enough to talk about them. But then, on the other hand, this is a show for everybody. And so anybody's opinion is as valid as anyone else's because we're all just the same. We're all just viewers of a show.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I really do feel... This is why the feedback section is really important to us, because genuinely believe that, within reason, as long as you're not being an arsehole, everyone's opinion is worth listening to. But it's. I was just worried about. Oh God, I don't know if I'm going to do a good job of this. But I'm interested, without getting into too much detail, about whether you thought there was any comparison here between Toyah's story and this story, because there's obviously two big medical things going on in the same week.
Yeah. Comparison in what
How do you
sense?
feel like, but do you feel it was really heavy to have these two really big emotional medical things, or did you think that Toyah's was more medical and Billy's and Paul's was less about...
I mean, there is obviously the emotional side of things with Toyah and Nick, even though they're still keeping their distance somewhat. Nick's telling David he thinks he's in love with Toyah, but this really was... Billy and Paul's was the story of this two couple that have been in love with each other for over a year. They've known each other. Well, no, Toyah and Nick have known each other longer, but no, I don't. I suppose thinking about the mood for the week has been relatively somber.
That's what I'm saying.
But then with the Nick and Toyah story, that there's been more. A little bit more light-heartedness, or there's bit because it's tied up with all the Institute craziness. You had Nick punching Rowan in the face. There was none of that in this story, particularly on Friday's episode. It was just wall-to-wall character drama, and yes, there was the odd funny moment here and there. I think some people will say it's too much, it's too miserable.
I mean,
but
as a spoiler, we end with Paul still with us.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether Coronation Street, I mean, they obviously are always talking about what we're going to do next. When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? I wonder whether they were like, we just can't do it. We can't do it in the same week.
Well, I think also with Toyah's story, and as I said earlier, I don't know where it's going to go, but it doesn't feel to me like, she's not been given any kind of terminal diagnosis here. She's got potentially... she's got very good chances of survival, so it's not utterly miserable for her as much as a horrible shock for the character as it is. They feel different enough,
okay.
And the fact that they're spread out across the week, but I
mean,
suppose
how much can you really
this
spread
is turning out to be a bit of a miserable street talk. We're trying
our best to be respectful of what's happening, but also to not just be maudlin about it.
Yeah.
Which is not our nature anyway. And if you have trouble with that, then I don't know if you've made it this far. But
what did you expect going into today's episode? Because you asked me to write down some predictions. I found it really, really difficult because I'd seen the trailer maybe just once or twice, and it turned out that a lot of my predictions were just things I'd seen in the trailer, like, I think they'll go to church. I think... but my overall one was still, I didn't think that Paul would be gone by the end of it.
I didn't think he would, but then when the episode started, as it progressed, I was like, he's going to want to do it today.
When we were 10 minutes towards the end, when Billy was getting ready and the clock was ticking those seconds towards midnight, I was like, oh my gosh, he really is going to go. Now the beginning of the podcast is going to make me sound stupid. But I thought...
Is that your main concern?
That's my main concern, really, just not looking stupid. I didn't have a huge lot. I thought they'd maybe go and visit the lake. I was quite surprised as I was watching today's episode how quickly they ended up back in the flat and how quickly it was evening. Because
I thought they'd visit more places than one place.
Well, they went to number 5. They went to the pub.
I wouldn't really.
They went to the church.
Yeah, I know. I think I was thinking best of Billy and Paul compilation.
But really,
it's logical that he wouldn't have the energy
to go to all these places.
Yeah.
And having the church there as an important... I'm still not completely convinced by Paul's conversion to Christianity.
Why? That's a rude thing to say.
Only because it seems like it gets dropped in every now and then, and I'm not expecting them to be, talking about it all the time.
You've got to remember that they don't want to alienate people. I think they've done it perfectly. Because this is a very a non-religious country, I think it's generally Christian, but most people really I don't think have faith. They don't go to church regularly. So I think there's a real danger of wading into territory that starts to alienate people, which is a shame because I don't think I would find it alienating to watch, for example, a Muslim character explore their faith in a deeper way.
No.
But, well, you know, there's lots of different people in this who watch this show who have different opinions.
Although as I say, I think that they could have probably lent into a little bit more, because we had that in the bathroom episode. We had him saying, "Oh, I got baptised and I go to church every weekend with Dee Dee." We've not seen any of that.
That's because we don't watch him at the weekend.
I know. But I will say that there was more of the religious side of it in today's episode than I was expecting.
Yeah, me too.
One of my predictions was for today's was that it would get a cursory kind of nod of the head, and that was about it, and it'd be more about the romance side of things. But actually, Billy and Paul's faith was quite central to a lot of what was going on.
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet and sensitively done. I think I don't think you need to be religious or even believe in the same things, or even in an afterlife to appreciate what they did with these characters.
No. Any other thoughts? What I mean, based on the trailer, so did you still go into it thinking that all the orangey, dancey, in your head scenes were just for the trailer? Or?
I thought I thought that, but then I also thought that the whole thing was going to be in the flat. I didn't think they'd go anywhere in the end, and I thought the whole thing would be flashbacks, but flashbacks of things that are new.
Oh, I see.
And
so
I also
newly filmed scenes.
That we would have more of Paul, like dream sequences of him like doing things he can't do.
Right.
Which I don't. But one thing I didn't predict, and neither did you, which was fantastic device for telling the story, was to hear Paul's thoughts.
No, well, I'd read a little bit of the publicity for it, and they talked about Paul's narration, but I didn't literally think it would be a narration. I went into this episode expecting. I said to you, just as I was writing down with my predictions, and even as the intro sequence is going, I was typing in, I think the first scene will be him dancing in his dreams from the trailer, and I was right, and it was. But I thought that throughout the episode we would just be going back and forth to him in his dreams. But as it turned out, we saw pretty much all of the dream world sequences in the trailer, didn't we? There wasn't a whole lot more in the episode itself. So I thought it'd be a case of Paul not being able to communicate at all to Billy, and then we kind of flash to inside his head and he's shouting, because there's that scene where at the beginning where Paul's having his dance, and then Billy arrives, then Billy disappears, and Paul's running through the exit going, Billy, where are you? And I thought that he'd be trying to communicate with Billy in the real world, and then we'd cut to him shouting through the door, Billy. I was expecting a bit more of that, and I think in the end I'm glad we didn't. I think the narration worked better than that, and it kept it more focused on the here and now. It did feel a little odd at the beginning having a narration, because it was so new. It was uncharted territory for Coronation Street to have a narrator over it. And
fairly sure it's never been done in Corrie before.
No, I don't think so. I suppose it's the natural progression of everything else they've been trying. It's similar to the monologues with other things going, people speaking over someone else's scene, a bit like when Kit found his elephant in the drawer and Bernie was talking over the top of him, for example, earlier this year. I got used to it, but at first when he started narrating, I was like, oh, is this going to feel a bit odd, because it is just him reading from a script in front of a microphone, I assume. But yeah, it worked very, very nicely.
Yeah, when it started, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. And then Peter Ash did a fantastic job.
I think the combination of Peter Ash delivering the lines, Debbie Oates' excellent script, the combination of the two made it just work.
Yeah, Debbie Oates wrote this, Vicky Thomas directed, and obviously you got Peter Ash and Dan Brocklebank, the two main characters, but there were plenty of other people in this episode, including David. Turned up, didn't he?
Oh yeah, we got
at one point.
Yeah, we had David, we had Bernie, we had Gemma, all the quads, even Chesney at the end. And I said in the short for today's episode, I have never been so glad to see Chesney turn up as I was in this episode, because I wasn't ready to see Paul go. So thank goodness that Chesney was able to delay that for however long. I was wondering as well. I can't remember what else I said in my predictions. I think I said that I might have expected a little cameo from Shelley, maybe. But this is when I thought that there was going to be a lot of it in his head, or it'd be dreams or something. And I thought that maybe Shelley could be somebody that he's bouncing
Oh,
off.
I don't know. I think that would have
I
been...
think-
I mean, as it was,
I'm not going to
honestly-
say my predictions for what I wanted. I think looking back on it, what we got was much better than that. But it could have been having him somebody, to have a bit of repartee with in his head. But because we didn't spend very long in his head, it really wasn't needed. Anything else that you were expecting based on the trailer?
I wrote down mention of God.
Yes.
I thought it would be a two-hander.
Did get a shout out.
And that's about it. I thought there'd be lots of orange lighting.
How did you guess that? Is obviously a Coronation Street tribute to that colour of orange there. I thought that because we saw in the trailer he would be running up to this exit door, and I thought that they were going down the whole metaphor of is he going to walk through the exit door, and that's the metaphor for him ending his life.
What? That's really obscure.
What
An exit door meaning death?
Yes.
They couldn't do that. No, too hard to understand.
No, I thought...
It's a joke. I'm winding you up.
Sorry, I don't understand. No, I thought that's what that would be. And even when he was
It's
calling...
a bit on the nose, isn't it?
Even when he was calling through the exit door in the trailer, I thought he's like, is he going to step through it? Is he going to go over and that's it? But clearly not. But then when we had that return to the dream sequence towards the end, and he and Billy both walked through the exit door together, I was like, what does this mean?
Murder-suicide.
Well, no, because at the very end, we had that, and then we had them there the next morning on the sofa, and I was like, oh, I think Paul's going to die of natural causes overnight. And in a way,
God.
that would have made it,
Traumatic for the children.
definitely traumatic for the children, because we know that they do like to get up early and run around the house. No, I thought that, Billy, I think as he was preparing to deliver the syringe of concoction, he was still clearly not wanting to do this, and I thought that the prayer that he did was lovely. Just saying, I can't remember.
We're kind of jumping ahead.
It doesn't matter. It's fine. Watch over me, or hope you see some good in what I'm doing, or something he was saying to God. Yeah, it was something along those lines. And I think that if he had woken up, Billy that is, and Paul had died overnight, then still would have been the same tragic outcome as if he'd done it himself, but he wouldn't have been the one ultimately responsible for it, and I think he probably would have felt better for that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think we've said before that we think that there's a real possibility that he's going to die of natural causes.
I think it's more likely than ever now.
And if it was to happen that way, when he'd already,
he'd said his goodbyes
I think I said
to
this
everyone.
Before, that it's his choice. That's what I want for him. I want him to be able to pick. And if he died of natural causes after already having chosen to go, then that's kind of the best of both worlds, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out. But again, Coronation Street, I don't really feel that it needs to go down this particular route, because we've already had the story, not because it doesn't happen so often.
I also
it's the
don't
same
want
as
to...
all that, it's the same as what I say about cancer and all the other things. Not that it doesn't happen so frequently, perhaps, but we don't need to have stories about it every 5 minutes.
It also doesn't... if Billy had done this, that would have weighed down on him. As he didn't want to do it, he would have felt guilty about that.
He wouldn't have ever forgiven himself.
He wouldn't have been able to forgive himself.
Even though he's okay, even though he's
doing it
because for Paul.
Yeah, exactly. He wouldn't have been and it could have also, I suppose, if Paul had woken up, not woken up, if he'd passed away during the night, then Billy would have, I don't know, maybe have had to have convinced Todd, say, that, no, I didn't do it, it wasn't me. And Todd maybe had have resented Billy for doing it when actually Billy had done nothing. I mean, it would have led to more kind of soapy...
Tell you what, I hope they bob him a text in the morning.
I'm fine, I'm okay, yeah. I'm interested, we'll maybe talk about it later.
Imagine being Todd, he doesn't know. I hope they told him.
Yeah.
Todd's gone home thinking, I'll never see him again. He's probably crying. He probably couldn't eat his tea.
Yeah.
And now he'll see him, he'll probably think he's been haunted.
What else did I think? I was thinking... I've lost.
Are you still talking about your predictions?
Yeah. I did think that we would get some clips from old episodes, which we did, and I think that they were very tastefully done. Because I didn't think that Paul would die by the end of it, I thought it maybe would get brought up, but I thought that the very end of the episode would end on more of a positive, happy, I'm not ready to go yet sort of note, and maybe they would end the night under some CGI stars. and it would be a little bit of a romantic, under God's creation and that kind of, which they didn't do. I still think that would have been nice, but I was very happy with.
God's creation is children.
He even created the flat, so I suppose he's everywhere.
God didn't do the architecture. I mean, is God responsible for the stair lift?
Well,
you know what I mean. You say God's creation, and I think you're on the right track there, because it was, the children are the future, sort of.
I think that's a really
they
nice.
Weren't cats.
Can't do everything. I thought that was a really nice way to end it with the quads.
It was lovely.
We've not had loads of scenes over the last few years of Paul with the quads, but there's been enough recently that it does.
It was sweet.
It's sweet, and it's like, they are something to stay alive for, I suppose, is the message that we're taking away from that.
Well, it was. I don't know if it's that. I think it was more, there's still things I can enjoy in this life.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm okay now.
Yeah.
I'm all right at the moment. And Bernie was right when she said that it'll be over. You're feeling like this. I don't know how he's going to feel in the next few days.
No, I'm really fascinated.
I really don't know
I have had a sneaky look at the synopses for next week, and this was about a week ago. I have not seen anything.
Why are you doing
I
this?
just scanned. I was literally again scanning the names to see if Paul was mentioned, and I don't think he's even mentioned. So I think it was a case of they've not put his story into the synopses for next week, because they're obviously all over the soap mags now. And if he'd have been mentioned, then it would have spoiled the surprise of he's still alive at the end of the episode. But this story is going to be a fairly major one as part of next week's ongoing episodes, I hope, because I am really, really fascinated to see what happens with him next, and the others, especially Todd, considering he kind of got the idea in today's episode of where this was potentially leading. Do you want to kind of run down a bit of a synopsis of the episode, and we can chat about bits as we go?
Right, so it begins with Paul's dream where he's dancing. And what song it was, don't know. We always miss this. Everyone always goes, it's deeply, very deeply important.
Classic, no doubt.
And unless it's very narrow.
Oh, I did also write in my predictions, I was
songs.
expecting there to be a Let's Get Ready to Rumble in there, and there wasn't. So, but that's certainly not what he was dancing to at the beginning of this.
Why did you think Ant and Dec would be involved?
Well, because that was the song that he and Gemma did, didn't it?
Oh, the twins song.
When they had their 30th birthday.
Save it for the funeral.
Yeah.
Right, so he's dancing and Billy hugs him from behind, and then he's like, oh, Billy's there, and then he runs after him through this exit looking for him, and when he wakes up, and then we get the narration where he's talking to himself going, it's just a dream, and he's trying to talk but he can't, and he's panicking because he thinks that his speech is getting worse, and Billy says, no, I can still understand what you're saying, let's do our gorilla outing.
I thought that was really, really sweet from Billy, the fact that he was still pretty much able to understand Paul, and there was no kind of, can you say that again? What was that? I didn't quite catch that from Paul. He was treating him like we understand each other.
He did misunderstand him at one point.
Yeah, he did. But
I struggled to understand some of what he was saying today.
Yeah, how well do you think that they managed that? Because obviously, Peter Ash's performance, 100% flawless.
When we needed to know what he was saying, we understood it. And I think Peter Ash needs a lot of credit for this, because he knows, he dials it back slightly when there's, when we need to know what he's saying. But we can still see in other moments that he's, not speaking very clearly.
They could have gone down the route of putting subtitles up for him, and I'm glad
that would have been terrible.
That would have been absolutely terrible. I'm glad they didn't.
You can have subtitles if you want them.
Yeah, but but
I think that would have been patronising.
But exactly, and you're right. When on the whole we needed to hear him. We did understand him. We did. But Billy was absolutely lovely throughout the whole thing.
Billy was wonderful. We've seen him struggle with it. We didn't get that until the decision was made, and he struggled then. But Billy's excited because they're going to the church, and then we hear Paul saying, like, why did you make me wear a tracksuit? It's terrible.
There was a nice little drone shot of the church, wasn't there? They did go all out with the production of this. I can't remember now whether it was the fancy cameras all the way through, or there were bits that we were talking about when they were going down the street at one point. They clearly had a bit of a different camera setup, and it was just looked a bit dingier, and I'm not always a fan of that, but I let it pass for this episode.
How magnanimous of you.
I know. Because all the shots in the church were lovely, because they had some nice little pans of the stained glass windows, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah, we got lots of shots of various...
In the crucifix. And
Yes. So we get a POV shot of Paul walking up the aisle to get to Billy, and it was I thought it was a bit weird, but there was somebody had put a wedding photo in the church, hadn't they, of when they were married. I don't know, it's like, someone's left a photo here. It's like, what was the production stuff? That was really nice of them.
It did remind me when they did the flashback to the photo, and Summer was there snapping away. I was like, Summer, don't leave the photo there. Do you remember all the drama that caused for an episode?
Stop her from doing it. Right, so they reminisce, don't they? And Billy says it was the happiest day in his life, and he wants to remember it. And they have flashbacks, and Billy starts to read out 1 Corinthians 13, but he doesn't get very far, because as soon as Paul sees him put his hand on the Bible, he has a flashback to when Billy swore that he would let him go when he wanted to, and this distresses him because he's thinking about the end.
This is when he does a little talk to God as well. He looks up at the stained glass window of Jesus and says, look, can't you make time stand still, boss? Just give us a little bit of time out.
Yeah, and he just says sorry. And then in the next scene, we're in the pub with all the friends. Todd, Summer, Kirk, Daniel, Dee Dee.
Daniel seemed a little bit superfluous.
Who did?
Daniel.
I forgot. I genuinely did not know he was there until I read this.
He was...
He's just there. Again, I'm just making.
It felt like they were making up the numbers with some of them. Like even Kirk being there.
Kirk was weird. I don't know what Kirk's got to do with it.
But I suppose that in a way speaks to this story and Coronation Street's production in general, where they have such a narrow amount of characters to appear prominently in most stories. Like even having Dee Dee and David there was a bit of a stretch. I know that Dee Dee has been important. I mean, I know that they are supposed to be close to Paul, and up to today we've not seen loads of them with part of it.
Right.
What were you going to say?
What are you moaning about? You want there to be people in it or not?
No, I was happy that there was. I just am a little bit regretful that we've not seen more of David and Dee Dee as part of the story leading up to now.
Well, they haven't done it, have they? No. So shut up moaning.
I'm not sorry.
Well... It just felt a bit then like, I know you were saying something very reasonable, but at the same time you were complaining about 2 different things at the same time. Like, they were in this scene, but they weren't in all the other scenes. Well, okay, let's not have anyone in anything.
I will say that I very much appreciated David's contribution with his little bubbly gadget that he had. Adding a bit of froth to Paul's beer.
I feel like there's more context to this.
I was like, what on earth are you doing at first?
He takes Kirk's beer or someone's beer and then he bubbles it up. And then he puts the froth into Paul's mouth so that the bubbles pop and he can taste the beer, which I had... Up until recently, Paul's just been drinking beer, as far as I recall.
But he has stopped now.
I don't know. When did he say that he'd stopped drinking beer?
Weeks ago, he's not been allowed any liquids. You can remember he got the tube fitted, didn't he, about a month or so ago? Yeah.
But anyway, I personally would have loved that for gravy. Would be?
Is that going to be your last?
I don't know that frothy gravy is...
Frothy gravy bubbles.
What would you miss the most?
Milkshake.
I mean, these are all liquids already.
Yeah, but you can't bubble up a steak, can you?
Oh, we could have a go.
Especially not the way Kevin has.
Oh, God, no. Right, so that was very sweet and thoughtful of David.
I wonder whose idea that was to put it in there. But was that something that's come from Debbie Oates, or was it, it feels because they've done so much research and partnership with the MND Association. Maybe that was just a story that maybe even like Rob Burrow or someone had contributed and they wanted to include it in there.
Yeah, I know that this feels very much like something that somebody who's very deeply involved in MND has said, this is something that you guys might want to consider.
Yeah.
So Paul gets very emotional and says they're all his best mates.
Yeah, that was one of the few things that we could hear and understand.
So after that, they head outside, and Paul's getting fed up because he's having to say everything through something else. Like it's either Billy interpreting or his machine, and he says "I love you," but he doesn't Billy doesn't understand and thinks he needs the toilet. And Paul says, the one thing I thought he'd always understand, I hate this condition, I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know whether we made it completely clear at the beginning of this episode that he does wake up and his speech has deteriorated that much more. It's not a case of like, it's the same as it has been. It's literally, it has got a lot worse.
So not only is he trapped in the flat after this day, but he's also unable to speak.
Yeah.
And so Billy goes to see if Bernie's there, and this is when Todd comes over, and Todd is kind of understanding, or Todd's starting to get suspicious, isn't he, about how Paul is feeling?
Yeah. I can't remember what Paul says exactly, but
something
Todd
tips
at some
him
point
off
gets
here.
the idea that I think Paul tries to tell him, look, I've gone as far as I can, and Todd correctly interprets that as I'm almost done.
And I think that this relationship here is such a fantastic trio of characters. We always used to make fun of them, and when it was more of a love triangle. Dads. And they were who's Billy gonna end up with and stuff. It was a bit tedious, but there's something really pure about the three of them having this kind of very deep friendship. And I tell you what, it's really hard watching everybody interact with Paul, because they're all doing such a great job. And this is why I'm kind of glad they put in what they did with Joseph, because Joseph was scared, and I could tell straight away that's what he was. Well, he was acting weird. He was scared of Paul because he doesn't know how to act around him, and it's like seeing him in such a condition is unnerving, even for an adult.
It's been lovely to see a lot of Paul's other friends haven't been being too condescending to him. They've just been treating him. They've not been babying him. They've been treating him normally, like even with David, like saying, "Oh, here you go, here's your drink," and they've been making jokes with him because that's what he's been like all the way through this.
I'm glad they're doing that. I don't know how realistic it would be, which is sad. But it's not a normal thing to put a spoon of something in your friend's mouth. But David did it, and he didn't make it weird.
When you put a spoon of something in somebody's mouth, it is often to a baby, isn't it? It's like, here you go, here comes the aeroplane, or as a joke. But this wasn't. It was done very kind of sensitively.
It's just done in a kind of like in the spirit of friendship and sharing.
Yeah, and I think another thing I really liked about the fact that we got this narration from Paul is to show that he is completely 100% in the brain. He's not regressed
exactly.
mentally.
Right. That's a very
This
good
is
point.
a physical condition. He's still 100% Paul inside, so he doesn't need to be treated any differently.
No,
in that sense anyway.
No, and it's difficult because people get. I get anxiety because I think I'm going to mess up, and then rather than trying it anyway, it's easier to just try to not do anything at all.
Yeah.
And I think Joseph was a good character to demonstrate this.
Yeah, because that's what they go around to.
Because he's a child and he's blameless.
Yeah, they go around to number 5 next, don't they? And Bernie's off with Deb. Deb gets a few shout-outs but didn't appear in the episode, did he?
No, they're supposed to be going to Blackpool later.
You kind of pointed out the similarities between this and one of Hayley's last episodes when Roy wheels her around the street and we get that amazing scene where she bumps into Tracy and says that your one remaining kidney would be ashamed of you. And then she goes and sees Carla, and this was similar, like visiting different characters.
The final tour.
And I think that worked nicely, that all his friends were together. We didn't need a scene of him seeing Dee Dee and then a scene of seeing David, and then having them together was fine, but I think it was important that we got Gemma on her own, and then we got a couple of moments with Todd on her own. The most important characters, Bernie later in this story, got their own final, in inverted commas, moment with him, even though it turned out not to be final.
Yeah, so he's at Gemma's house and he's looking at all the quads and he's saying, I wish I could watch you grow up. Like I said, Joseph is a bit spooked.
Yeah, Gemma says, give your uncle a hug, and he doesn't want to, and that was quite a gut-wrenching moment. But Paul's still saying, look, it's okay, I understand.
No, yeah. Kate comes in with a birthday card for Chesney, and Paul says to Gemma, you're fab, I love you. And Paul's thinking, I hope that you'll remember me, the kids and everybody. So it
was a short scene, but it was really sweet with the kids, and having Gemma wave him off at the end as well. I can't remember what Kit did there in the end, apart from delivering that birthday card to Chesney. But
no, I don't know what he's there for.
He certainly didn't need a final scene with Paul on his own.
Well, no, he didn't even really talk, did they?
No, I am still a little bit wondering, could the whole Kit story have happened after Paul had gone? I've not seen enough compelling evidence yet that Kit needs to be here.
I just think the emotional
during this story
wrench of knowing that you missed out on even meeting your brother by days would have been enough to have made Kit's hatred of Bernie make a bit more sense.
Yeah, that's true.
But hey, I don't write it.
Not yet.
One thing I was going to say is that quite often in the show, when I've spoken about characters and, you know, having to have a friend or talking to somebody about something they wouldn't normally talk to them about, and I've always said that one of the things about a soap is that you have no internal monologues. And I just wonder how many times anyone who knew this was coming up was listening to that going, oh, you wait, we're going to get one, you're going to get one for sure, which is, it's great.
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
Really...
But I don't want them to do it again.
That's what I was saying about this being a special episode. And I'm not gonna say it again because I think that this was definitely a brilliant episode, and I agree the same thing about Lauren and Joel. Wish they weren't so close together, but it's happened, and I can't complain about it. I just think it slightly dampens the shine.
But I've got no complaints with
when
any
I have
of the
too
production.
many diamonds.
I've got no complaints with any of the production of this episode, even though, you know, on paper there was a lot there that could have not worked for me. It could have said, like, I could have looked at it and said, "Oh, this isn't Corrie."
Yeah, if you said it's going to start with a dream, it's going to have a load of flashbacks, and there's going to be somebody narrating it, you'd be like, "Can you stop now? Just don't even bother doing it. I'm not going to hate every minute of it."
It worked perfectly.
Yeah, it was great. This is special. This is, and like I said before, I was scared about this episode because I thought, we know there's going to be a horrible episode. There's going to be an episode where Paul dies.
At what point did you start to think...
And I don't want that time to come, but again, they've done a fantastic job of making Paul's story so human without it being just a tear-jerking mess of tears everywhere.
Yeah. At what point did you start to realise, oh, hang on a minute, this is Paul wanting to...
When I told you?
Do the final... I can't remember when that was.
No, I don't remember now.
Because it was around this point for me, particularly when... Because he goes and sees Summer next, doesn't he? And says...
Well, I told you that's what's going on.
I think...
Because they meet Summer and Todd. Summer, Todd and Billy are all outside, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going out. I'm going to have fun." And then Paul says, "Oh, stay in a hotel." And she says, "No, I'll just get a taxi back." And he says, "No, have a good time, stay in a hotel." And Todd is like, "Okay, right."
The cogs are turning in his little brain. Same with me.
You want an empty house. You don't care about how much it costs. Something is up here. So someone's like, "Oh, great, brilliant. You're special." "No, you're special." And then Paul's like basically crying as she leaves.
He's basically, with everybody, as he leaves, you can see the tears welling up because as far as he's concerned, this is the last goodbye, and they don't realise that.
So Todd
kind of looks down at him and is like, "Hotel, eh? How you doing in there, really?" And I think that I said that everyone was, you know, treating Paul as normal, but I think sometimes, especially if he had kind of given the okay to have jokes, it can be maybe easier to have jokes, but Paul was the one that was doing the real serious kind of stuff. Like,
who's having a joke?
No, like with David, with the foam and everything. Everybody in the post was having in the pubs or was having a bit of a joke with him and just saying, "Oh, we're having fun together," but they probably didn't want to confront the fact that this is kind of really serious and we don't know how long is left here. But which he didn't need that from his friends. But Todd did, and he it was even more difficult, I imagine, for him to try and open up the conversation into, is this it?
Just asking someone how are you doing is really can be really daunting when you know you're not going to like the answer. But Paul's like, "Don't ask me."
Yeah,
Paul in his head.
Yeah, Paul's. I can't remember whether it was
I
can't remember whether it was in his head or whether it was because I didn't really always differentiate in the in my notes here. But I think Paul's kind of saying to Todd, "Don't go down this route because I don't want to tell you. I don't want to confirm your suspicions because then you're part of it. You know, you're implicated in my death if you know that it's going to happen."
Well, it's also like if I talk to you about it, it makes it more real. That's why he kind of like panicked a bit when he saw Billy put his hand on the Bible.
Yeah.
One thing they were talking about in the pub was what would you do on your last day, which was a bit bit morbid, but Paul seemed fine with it. But it's like when people say, what would be your final meal? Like, it wouldn't really matter because I'd be throwing it up seconds later because I'm going to die.
I don't know where I'd want to go if I was in Paul's situation here, because I don't go down the pub. I don't know. You're going to take me to school? No, I'm all right, thanks. Like, can you get me up to Coronation Street in time?
I'll just scatter you.
You're going to scatter me on the cobbles,
I'm not taking you up there if it's a hassle.
Just for a day journey there and back.
No,
10 hours in
it.
the car. Maybe that's a bit much.
That will be the time we get a plane. Although, I have looked into this recently again, and it keeps changing. There's now no direct flight. It'll be about 10 hours on a plane.
Don't fancy that then.
Bother. Yeah.
Coronation Street people can come and see me.
Maybe we can hire.
If it's my last day.
We'll just take out a credit card in your name and go by helicopter.
Yes, of course.
What are they going to do about it? Right. So, they end up in a flat, and
from this point onwards, it's pretty much Billy and Todd, Billy and Paul. Sorry.
No,
Todd's there
still
for
there
a bit. You're right.
Because he has a bath, and after it happens, it's just Todd and Paul again, and Todd's upset. He knows this is the end, and he asks, "Can I have a hug?" And
Paul says, "No funny business."
Then he gives him a hug and he gives him a kiss. He says, "I love you." That
was a really lovely moment.
And Paul thinks, "Don't make me cry, you soppy get." And then he says thank you. And then Todd says, "Don't thank me. It's been a privilege, it really has." And then he leaves. So that, to them, they thought that was their final moment. Yeah. Billy still hasn't cottoned on to this, but he's about to. Mm-hmm. In a minute. Because Bernie comes in. She's got loads of VHS tapes. She's bought them from charity shops because she's like, yeah, you're going to be stuck in here. You might as well make use of it. Here's a bunch of videos that I've got.
Has she not heard of Netflix or Disney Plus?
I don't think.
I suppose their financial situation in the winter brand means they can't quite stump up the amount for a subscription.
Never heard of it.
If I was, didn't know how long I had left and I had the option, do I want to stream these instantaneously or do I have to worry about rewinding them just in case? I'd be like, just stream it all the way.
It's the thought that counts, Michael, you bitter old man.
She wanted him to have the full 80s experience.
She said it's going to look like a 1980s blockbusters in here.
He wasn't even born in the 80s. At least give him, I suppose he's a 90s kid himself.
I think you're overestimating how refurbished blockbusters were in the 90s. If you want a good classic movie to watch, Paul, Twister.
Oh yeah, we watched Twister my first time watching Twister.
1996. This was the 90s boiled down and distilled into one movie. The whole thing is just so 90s from start to finish. It's hilarious. I love it so much. I was on the edge of my seat.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. You said you've seen it like 5 or 6 times.
I love it. I hadn't seen it for years, but I thought I'd watch it. So I recommend it to Paul because I think he'll like it. So Bernie's stroking his face. She tidies up the flat, doesn't she, for them, and as an act of love. And Paul tells her, "You're so good to me. You've proper looked after me." And she's like, "No, you don't have to thank me. It's my job." And then she says, "Look, you'll deal with this." And then she says, "I'll bring you a kiss me quick hat from Blackpool," and she heads out.
Yeah, she's going off with Dev, isn't she now?
Yeah, she's going to Blackpool for the weekend.
This is the point where it's Paul and Billy for a long stint.
But Billy goes into the cupboard and Paul begins to play Happy Day on his phone or something.
I don't know what it was. He must have it set up on his machine because he can't use his phone. We didn't hear him giving his phone voice commands, so he must literally have a little shortcut.
I don't think we need to be...
And the look on Billy's face as the realisation came in, and it wasn't even...
Anguish.
Yeah, and it would have been clear to him, but even as me, as a viewer... I didn't recognise that bit of the song. You know, everyone knows the "Oh Happy Day," but there was a build up to it, and so it took me a minute to realise, oh, this is what this is. And because I hadn't expected before going into the episode this to be actually Paul's last day, I wasn't listening out for that song.
Yeah,
but that was a moment.
He's like, no, not today, please no, and then we get the bumper music, which. They turned off for the next break, but they could have done it for this one too. Yeah,
having this emotional cliffhanger, this super emotional, and then going nah, it didn't quite gel. But
that was good in the early days of Corrie, where it was like, Enos Sharples, you didn't pay for this tin of salmon.
Well, no, it's only been since they went HD. It used to be the
But that is still no. We need Coronation Street needs to commission a investigative process to find what a good piece of music would be for sad moments that still fits in with the overall
I think just
theme.
having them silent like they did in the end worked fine.
But people will get surprised because Connie will appear.
Well, we were watching on ITVX, so we weren't wrenched away from the drama to have a little skit with Connie and Trevor, were we?
I can only imagine what really awkward, out of place things Trevor's going to say in the bumpers. Like, oh, what's going to happen next? One thing I think 1 minute, next thing I think someone else. Well, what do you think it is, Trevor? He's either going to kill himself or he's not.
Oh, Trevor's only got a little brain.
Trevor's going to be really upset when Paul goes, isn't he?
Yeah.
But we're not going to hear it from the bumpers. It's just going to be inappropriate banter.
It was worth paying that £20 to get ITVX for you.
I miss Trevor. I think about him all the time.
Oh. Well, he's going to be on the Sainsbury's, isn't he? We'll get to see him every time we watch Corrie.
Oh, that's all right then. Right, so Billy's like shouting at Paul, no, we can't do this. If you're feeling trapped, it's temporary. What's so bad about staying in? People were locked together for months during COVID. Why have you decided this now?
Yeah, he's absolutely livid because as far as Billy's concerned, they've had this lovely day together and this would spoil it. How did you find his reaction? Do you think that, was he being selfish there or...
No, this was very... Well, again, I always do this. I criticise people for things and being emotional and stuff. If everyone was like logical and stuff, it would be a boring show.
There's no Coronation Street where Spock comes from. What's that planet?
Vulcan. You have to explore all of these emotions and reactions, don't you? And if Billy had gone, okay, what would you have thought?
Yeah. Oh, time for you. If I'm
that's actually handy because I wanted to go to...
I'm actually in the kitchen right now.
I want to go to Spain.
Fancy popping along to Blackpool with Bernie tonight. Yeah. No, he was... I was watching it and half of me was going, Billy, don't
ruin
this
it.
This is
you
horrible.
Said you'd help.
Yeah.
You said you'd help him and now you're making him feel like crap.
But on the other hand, I was thinking, no, this is... I could who could do what, just say, oh, okay then.
Yeah, no one's going to say
Paul
that.
would know, surely, as difficult as it would be for him to accept it, that Billy would find it very, very difficult, especially after
I know, but he can't cope with
this.
this. He's like, don't shout at me. Stop shouting at me. He's thinking
this is like earlier when some of the other characters were arguing and Paul wasn't able to just wade in there and say, whoa, hold on a minute. He couldn't defend himself. He just had this barrage of not criticism, but he was accusations that he was being selfish from Billy, and Paul couldn't say anything. So I felt so bad for him, and he was trying to mumble out saying, Billy, please stop. Wait for me. And in his head, we could hear him saying, Billy, stop.
And this is just adding to without Billy realising it, he's just making Paul feel like this is time for me to go because I can't even talk. This is just making me feel even worse about being here. Yeah. Because I'm being shouted at, there's nothing I can do about it. What he needs is a klaxon or some button. So Billy's not accepting it, and he's like, "What? This is a great day. Why?" And Paul then is saying, "Why would I wait for an unbearable day?"
Yeah, that was. I think
that
I can't remember
sense.
whether it came there or whether it was later, but there was a line from the trailer where he was saying, "Why does it? Yeah, why can't it be on a good day?" I can't remember.
Right, so he's like, this is just a change, we'll adapt to it. And Paul's like, no, it's time. And then he says, I want you to not forget me, but I want you to get over me and find someone new. And Billy's like, I'm not doing this at the moment. He walks off and he's left him there. And sweet Paul is like, oh, I've upset him, I've said it all wrong. He's not thinking, oh, bloody hell, he's such a dick. I'm trying to talk to him and he's not even listening to me. He's like, I've upset him and I didn't mean to.
He doesn't stay away for too long.
Billy comes back and Billy's like he's begging him for more time, and he goes and gets the Bible. And Paul says, why don't you just can you tell everybody it happens tomorrow after midnight because I don't want to ruin Chesney's birthday, which was actually really sweet of him. I still think the day after is going to be rough.
Well, especially in the world of Coronation Street when you've got 3 days a week and your actual birthday can be very fluid.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But I thought that was just another example of Paul just being really
selfless to the end.
You used to criticise him for that, Michael, but you can't now, can you?
I know. No. But yeah, Billy says, look, if you want it to be after, I can't lie about this, if you want it to be after midnight, they'll wait until midnight. So I suppose it's a little bit of bargaining from Billy, who's not ready to say
bloody
goodbye
good job
yet.
That he said that, because they would have caught him out on this, wouldn't they?
They would have done, yeah.
It was already dead.
In a minute.
Paul's dead. I didn't know. Billy, you're acting very suspiciously, and I still have these children I need you to look after. Right, so then it's 11 p.m. The stuff's been made, and all there is now is to talk.
The clock on the wall, I thought that was really well done. They just kept cutting to it in that last hour, and I was getting like anxious, my heart was in my mouth as it was ticking closer. It reminded me a little bit of the Doomsday Clock in The Watchmen. You know,
right?
It was a very obvious metaphor to use, like a clock ticking down. Yeah, exactly. But it was good enough for me.
Well, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, do you?
I wanted to see the date tick over, but we didn't get to see that because of Chesney's interruption. But
rubbish! What a load of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so Billy sits on.
They do have Saturdays on Coronation Street sometime, but
they couldn't contractually show it. Billy and Paul are on the sofa, and Paul's like, "Why didn't we go? Why, he's thinking about all the things they never did. Like, why didn't we ever go abroad? Tell me about Stitches." Is that what it was called?
I can't remember. I assumed it was a place in Ibiza. It's
in Spain. It's a beach in Spain.
Okay.
And Billy's talking, and he's kind of walking him through institute-esque imagination, but it doesn't end with a cabin full of all the things you've done wrong in your life. It ends with a beach, which is where I'd rather go.
It's a really lovely little idyllic picture that he was painting there. He did some really. The
script was amazing. His performance was great, because I was like, yeah, I can imagine. I'm there too.
You don't even like beach holidays.
I hate beaches. I'm behind you going, this is hot, Billy. Why are we here? This is horrible. I've got sand everywhere. Why did you bring me? And they're like, we didn't actually invite you, Gemma. You just imagined yourself here somehow.
You just reality coded yourself into Paul's...
Can't help it, I'm level 7. Right.
You can put yourself inside people's fantasies when you're level 7.
I don't want to do that.
You don't want to know what Paul and Billy are thinking about.
Right, so Billy's telling him a story about this beach and the breeze, and they're smiling, and Paul says, there's so much we never did, and then Billy says, there's so much we did though.
Yeah, that was a good line.
And then Paul says, I can't imagine not being in the world, which I think that sentence by itself is incredibly powerful.
Well, it's certainly something that is going to resonate with lots of people.
I think
who've also considered their own mortality.
Yes, if you think about that, it's so hard to conceptualise, and he's just what a fantastically simple way of putting it. So after the break, Billy's got his Bible, and he's saying, I'm going to have to, he has another go at reading Corinthians.
Well, yeah, he also says, I'm going to need this Bible afterwards, because he still hasn't
take comfort from it.
Yeah, he still hasn't convinced himself 100% that this is the right thing to do.
I think even though he's doing this, he still thinks this is a sin that he's going to have to ask forgiveness for.
Yeah.
Which is his right to believe, whether or not you agree with it. Paul was listening, and he's thinking, he's having his memories. The clock's ticking, more flashbacks.
They do just do flashbacks of lovely Paul scenes, like when they first met,
kissing,
and there were kisses and
kissing and
doing a bit of skinny dipping
and kissing. He's saying how lucky he is, and Billy says, I'm lucky, and then Paul says, I love you, Billy, and it's getting so close to the end now. And
at
Billy's
this point,
got this
I was
syringe,
like, he's going to do it. He is going to do it.
And he's praying. Billy's praying, like, please forgive me. And then he's saying, oh, I've been at many deaths. I've only caused one before. This is going to only be my second one.
Susan. Sorry, Susan.
Sorry,
Shout
Susan.
out.
That was a retcon, though, so it's not my fault. Or was it a retcon? Anyway, sorry, Paul.
He didn't even. Susan didn't see him for dust. He was driven over the hill and far away by the time she copped it.
Billy says, I've been at many deaths. I've seen the change. The moment the spirit is gone and they are no longer in the body they once were, and now I have to choose which minute is our last. And Paul's like, I choose. And then Billy's like, are you sure? I need to know. I've got to ask you one more time if you want me to go ahead with this. Because if you say yes, I will. And he doesn't say anything because we get a buzzer. The intercom goes off.
This section, because they I think there was a bit of music in the background. There was much more than the usual, but still minimal use of background music for this to add to the emotion, wasn't there?
Yes.
And then this was part of it, and it did remind me. I mean, I was right there. I'd already made the comparison between Hayley's wheelchair scenes before, but this did take me to Roy and Hayley lying there on the bed, and I know Roy wasn't the one to give her the medicine there, but it was a bit like oh my gosh, they're actually going to do it. I'm not ready for this. Same as then.
This was just.
But I'm so glad that you can't understand how happy I was for it not to happen.
When it was buzzing, I was like, what the hell is this? What could this be? What is this going to be? I didn't think it was Todd, even though I think, looking back, I think it was probably supposed to have wondered if Todd was trying to stop him.
Yeah. But he means.
I was just thinking, what horrible tragedy has happened that's going to be worse than this? Because something worse has happened.
I think if it had been Todd, and the fact Todd knew that it was going to happen, I think it would have been a little bit too much of a coincidence.
It would have been out of character.
But also coincidence, he would have turned up just at the very right moment.
He's standing outside going, 5, 4, 3, midnight.
Yeah.
No, that wouldn't have happened, would it? Silly. Right, so it's Chesney. Everyone's happy, like you said, to see Chesney. He rushes up. Karis has fallen down the stairs. Gemma's taken to the hospital. He's got to go.
She's fallen over those massive feet of hers, hasn't she?
Wide feet.
Her huge, wide feet. Her hideous feet.
Poor child. Right, so he's got to go to the hospital, but he's got all these annoying children. Can they come here? And Billy's like, what would you think if you were Billy? You'd be like, I was seconds away from making this a really awkward moment with Chesney. What was you? Sorry, you can't come in.
Was there any point where you thought, are they going to try and do it with the kids still here and then sneak them out?
No, of course not.
Like, was the pressure was off?
No,
after this?
At that point I was like, well, they're not doing it now, are they?
Yeah.
Because they have, a shred of human decency, Michael. So they bring the kids in, and Paul's like happy to see them, and. There's this feeling of relief. There's this feeling of relief from Paul as well.
There wasn't any much like, oh, you've spoiled it. He is genuinely happy to see them. And I think it's probably made him realise that...
Well, the thing about it is that Paul doesn't really want to die. He just doesn't want to live. And there's a big difference between those two things.
Yeah.
So...
I think this has made him realise that... I think about all the things that I don't necessarily think that's true control.
At that moment. But it Certainly, well, I think they say it well enough in the episode.
Well, I think the fact that he's able to not make up with Joseph,
we'll get to it.
Go on then.
Right, so Billy and Paul are alone, and Billy's packing away the syringe, and then Joseph comes in saying, "I can't sleep," and then Paul texts something that Billy can see, and he says, "I think he's scared of me," and Billy's like, "Oh no, I'm sure he isn't, but I think he is." And Alid comes in, I can't sleep either. Everyone's, I can't sleep. So they're all having an exciting sleepover. It's really cute, actually.
It was
the
cute.
fact that they were like, I can't. I mean, I'd like to say that they were scared about their sister, but I think they were just excited because they weren't in their house anymore.
I think that I loved the Paul and Joseph moment in the end there. I really rated that performance.
Joseph sits down next to Paul and says, I've read the book, I Will Always Be Me. And this is the book, the MND book, about what it's like to have it, to explain it to people.
Inside, you haven't changed.
And he says, do you have dreams? And what do you dream about? Do you dream you can fly? And Paul says, I dance in my dreams. And...
Oh, this is when I think Joseph says, look, are you a good dancer? And Paul's like, no.
No. And then Joseph says, if Billy can learn to understand you, I can. And he gives him a hug.
Really lovely, really, really lovely.
The next scene is Paul and Billy lying on the sofa together, and Billy's like, look, I'm really sorry about how I reacted earlier. I panicked, and Paul's asking him to tell him about the beach again. And then we get another dream from Paul, and he's dancing. He's lost Billy again, but Billy turns up, and then he says, let's go to the beach. And they do. They go through the exit together. And
that's like I was saying earlier. Is this symbolising? Are they? Billy's not going to drop dead in the middle of the night.
Well, did anyone check the carbon monoxide detector?
Very good point.
That everyone's dead in that flat.
Yeah, just ask Ardy. No, I was willing Peter Ash to move in that next scene because I thought that was going to be it for him.
Well, they wake up. Chesney's on the phone. He comes and collects the quads, and Joseph's like, get back, Uncle Paul, I hope today's better. And then Paul's like, bye, they all go. And he says, see you soon. And Billy's like, see you soon. And Paul says, not today. What do we say to the god of death?
Yeah, Game of Thrones, I know.
Not today. So
somebody needs to post that gif later.
do you think that every day he's going to say not today until one day he doesn't? Do you think that's going to be the thing?
I don't know, because I think that it's putting him in control, and I honestly think that he's going to
let he is in control.
But I think he's going to let nature take.
But I don't think he's
going
to do it deliberately. I think it's just going to happen.
Yeah, I think because if they go through this rigmarole, for lack of a better phrase, of the Oh Happy Day, crunching up the pills, it was similar to Hayley's.
What are they going to do with it now?
They can't show that scene again and have it have the same emotional impact. So they've got to go a different route now.
I'll tell you what, who would like that syringe if they're not using it?
Oh,
Joel.
Why?
To get rid of Lauren.
Oh yeah, when his package arrives, whatever it is that he's got. So in a way, I'm glad, and I have been a little bit critical of the whole assisted dying route that this story has taken, and thought, I don't know, is that a bit close to the bone? I'd rather not. I don't want Billy to be responsible. I don't want him to have the guilt of this. So I'm, in a way, not only am I relieved that Paul is still alive and kicking at the end of this episode, I'm also kind of relieved that I think they've dodged that route that I really didn't need Billy to go down. I don't think
we're going to have another episode of this happening.
No.
So from that perspective, I think the door's been closed.
Yeah. As for how it happens in the end, how do I want it to happen? I don't know. We spoke, probably a year ago about what would be our ideal way for Paul to leave, and
I think he's just going to not wake up.
Yeah, so I think so too. I mean, we were talking about, is he going to jump heroically in front of a car, because we did not think that he was going to get to this level of physical immobility.
Are we going to get a scene where he has this dream again, and he says something like, "I'm ready," and he goes through the door, and that's how we know?
Goes on his own,
because
maybe.
Now we've established this dream sequence, and we've established the exit doesn't quite mean death, but it certainly could mean that in a future incarnation.
Death or Spain.
Death, Spain, or just in case of a fire.
I really have got no idea other than I think maybe he just doesn't wake up.
Well, anyway,
it was a bold move to have an episode as powerful as this and it not to end in his death, because it means that when he does have his final episode, they've got this to live up to in a way, because they're not going to want it to feel...
I don't know. I know what you're saying. I don't think there will be another Billy and Paul episode.
No.
But I'm glad they have this one.
There must have been a reason why they decided to do this now. And maybe it's going to be just the whole family are there. I really don't need Kit to be involved in it. But
Kit.
Bernie, Gemma, Billy, and actually Todd, I think he's earned himself a place in Paul's final episode with this.
Oh, Todd. So, anyway, they tell each other they love each other, and then they kiss, and that's the end of the episode.
Well, we did get the tribute to Paul Burrow at the end as well, who's the rugby league player who died a couple of months ago. He was only 41, and I know that Corrie had worked alongside him to help plot this story out. But yeah, I'm very, very eager to see what happens with Todd on Monday. I don't know what his reaction... I mean, he's going to be relieved, I suppose, but then he's going to think, why not?
It depends on whether he spent the whole weekend, just mooching around, bumming everyone out, and then he finds out that Paul's fine. He just forgot to text him. No, I think he'll be relieved, but I don't think he's going to, say, why don't you tell me, because I think that would be... a bit silly, but
I also wonder if Paul does decide to go down the assisted dying route still, despite all of this. Has Paul now seen how much it affects Billy, and will Todd kind of step in and say, "Well, let me be the one to help you out"? I don't know.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's been we've seen so little of Todd in this story, really, relatively speaking. I think there must have been a reason why he was given such an important. Serious role in today's
because he's
episode.
Part of,
I know he is.
I don't think there's anything more to it than he's...
I don't know.
What's like saying, why was Summer in it? Why was David in it?
Yeah, I guess.
Right. I think we've kind of wrung quite a lot out of this already.
Yeah,
I don't know what more there is to say.
No, I think we've talked about all we need to talk about with this, really. We haven't mentioned Billy's amazing... falling off the back of a L'Oreal joke on Monday.
What?
Do you remember on Monday's episode when they're talking about where somebody got something from, and I can't remember, a shampoo or something, and Billy says it fell off the back of a L'Oreal. You must remember that.
I do remember.
That was that. I went into this. I went into this episode really, really excited for it. I woke up this morning thinking, "Oh, great! It's this episode today. I know Corrie are going to do a good job. This has been my favourite story for a long time in Coronation Street. Peter and Dan had already proven themselves how well they could cope with it. And they're going to do something a bit odd, but I trust Corrie to do it well, and they more than met my expectations. The added bonus for me is you also enjoyed it, because as we were in the lead up to it, I was thinking, oh, what if Gemma really hates this? And so I'm very
What
relieved.
did you think I would hate about it?
Well, just because you don't like things that are too sad normally.
No, I don't. I would never watch anything like this. If this wasn't Coronation Street, no, I wouldn't like, oh, do you want to watch a film about a lovely gay couple and one of them dies of MND, and you watch it happen over a series of months? I'd say you must think I'm somebody else, because that sounds like the worst thing I've ever heard of.
But because we are both so invested in the characters of Paul and Billy and everybody involved, really, it was perfect. So
this is absolutely phenomenal.
I couldn't have asked for more
television
for tonight's episode.
They really did it dirty on us, because they made us cry, and then they just stopped at the last minute. I don't cry at things like this, but if I was a crier, I certainly would have cried for tonight's episode. This was just heart-wrenching from 2 minutes in. It's like, where's the tissues? This is just...
Yeah.
And it was just so human. This is what I've said all along about this. It's just so human and wonderful and well observed by everybody involved. It's just spectacular. And again, just want to say, we criticise so much, but credit where credit is due. This is Ian McLeod's story, and Verity McLeod is the producer at the moment and bridging the gap between him and Kate Brooks. So,
well, this was a very Ian McLeodish episode. Yeah. We haven't watched the Ashley episode of Emmerdale.
As, we've bashed him so many times.
Yeah.
Let's just say what a fantastic, what an intimidating story to give people. Also again, like when you go into Coronation Street podcasting, you don't expect to be talking about these things. Because I certainly didn't think about it when we started this, however many years ago. 12 years now?
Yeah.
It wasn't quite the same show as it is now. I also don't think that you, perhaps when you imagine your career, think about stories like this that are really harrowing and hard to work on and emotional. And Daniel Brocklebank's got a personal connection with MND.
Yeah. How
hard it must have been.
Well, I think I saw in some interviews Dan was saying that he had to kind of step off set and have a bit of a cry here and there.
And also, imagine being Peter Ash there and having such a great weight of responsibility.
Such a responsibility, but he didn't miss a beat.
Are people you've spoken to about this have died of it. The person you're playing opposite has had loved ones die, and you're representing something that is such a tragic and horrible disease to have, and I think he's done such a bloody brilliant job. I can't believe what they've pulled off. All of them, directors, writers,
flawless.
Producers, actors, everybody. I can't say enough brilliant things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really.
So I'll give it three.
This is the thing. We can't just rate this week on
this
today's episode.
Would you?
I might go for a 5. I've still never, all these years that we've been scoring, I've never scored a week of 5, even if maybe some episodes would be. And this was not a 5 of a week. I enjoyed lots of other bits of this week's episode. So Georgia Taylor was superb earlier on this week. I'm still enjoying a lot of the Institute bits. Even the fact that this little relationship that's developed between Mason and Stu has been kind of sweet as well. Abby being back has been lovely. There hasn't been any storylines that have been a bit down, although I suppose maybe some of the...
You don't mean down as in miserable,
No, they've all been like that. No, there haven't been any stories like, I'm not really interested in this story. I suppose, almost to me, one of the weak points story-wise this episode is maybe the Lauren, because there was a lot of just her sitting around in the flat being a bit arsey, saying, can I go to Ireland, please? But this was on the whole a good week, and an episode as good as tonight's really, really does drag that score up.
You can't say drag it up. You've got to say uplift it or something positive.
By its bootstraps.
No.
I am going to... no, actually, I want you to
I'm going to give this week 4.5 spicy aubergine dals because
delicious.
I still want some and I haven't had any since I spoke to you ducklings last. And my character of the week is Paul.
Well, yes, Paul, clearly character of the week. Although, if tonight's episode hasn't happened, I will give a runner-up to Debbie because she was superb on Wednesday.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I am going to give this week's episode 4.5 as well. 4.5 gooseberry ribs out of 5.
Nibble.
Delicious. Just to keep on the same culinary theme as you. Well, that was an awfully long street talk, and I know there was a fair bit where I was having to monologue on my own, and I hope it was worth getting through to get to this story, because I'm pretty sure that most people who were listening to tonight's street talk mostly wanted to hear about our opinions on this. I'm really looking forward to hearing what everyone else think about this, because we got an early screening of this episode. Well, everybody else got it, but I've not seen other people's online opinions of it, and I'll be very curious to see how are people saying it compares to the Lauren episode, because the comparison is natural to happen. So when that episode broadcast, people were saying, that is Corrie's best episode this year, and I watched it really enjoying it, but I had so many questions and little nitpicks about it. I don't with this. So to me, as great as that episode was, and I'm sorry, Ian Kershaw,
can you imagine if we
this trumps it.
Can you imagine if we went into this episode with the same spirit of nitpicking? Like, why hasn't anybody seen those pills? Are those pills going to be stored? Can you put them in liquid for that amount of time? Doesn't he have to administer it immediately? Why didn't Chesney just text before he came and rang on the doorbell in case they were asleep?
Yeah, exactly. Midnight, come on. Although they are a pair of party animals, those two, aren't they? Billy and Paul. Right, anyway, great episode. Good week on the whole. That is it for this week's Street Talk.